Right. Could have started exactly 11:22:33, but I missed it. Yeah, I kinda missed it. I was supposed to be recording way before, but I had some technical problems after updating some drivers. So yep. So let's see what to get. When you start, I think it's a short for beans and tea. Yep, pretty much. Beans and tea and some chips. Mm.
Man, I hope they make this game 15 years ago. Listen, I think you know me by now. As a kid, anything that was even slightly like a massive home console game on a handheld was awe-inspiring. So obviously seeing something like Mario 64 DS on the DS, absolutely incredible. You could get a Nintendo 64 game on a handheld, fully 3D models, this massive world to explore, plus a bunch of content. I mean, I got the mini games, these multiplayer modes. Oh, if only the game didn't control like ass. But you see, this game right here got me thinking about the concept of other games that I never would have imagined on a handheld. You know, one thing that I always saw was this fake leak that, looking back, is quite possibly one of the most effective, amazing fake leaks ever produced. And that was for Super Mario Galaxy DS. The fact that fans just made this in their spare time 20 years ago, compared to fake leaks we get nowadays, you don't see fake leaks with this kind of effort and of this quality these days. Imagine how insane this was like 20 years ago. And I think it's super cool that a lot of dedicated fans have attempted and actually succeeded in many ways in actually putting Mario Galaxy to some extent on the DS. But even disregarding that little hoax from back in the day and Mario 64 DS got me thinking pretty much anything could be on the DS with a little bit of bubble grease. One of my favorite games at the time that I would just still have a DS version of was Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Now, of course, a DS version of specifically Smash Bros. Brawl probably isn't very logical. That game is like one of the biggest Wii games. You couldn't even fit all the music from that game on a DS cartridge, let alone the actual game. But Smash Bros. Brawl just had so much content. It was such an easy pick up and play game. You'll play for a little bit here and there, or hell, you could just sit down and play for hours on end. You could play it any way you wanted. I just love the idea of constantly trying to collect every trophy, every sticker, unlock everything imaginable, just keep playing this game on the go. I don't think there's a single concept for a game I wanted more than Smash Bros. DS. And Mario 64 DS really made it feel possible because with that being a remake of Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64, now Smash Bros. Started on the N64, so there you go. It's probably possible to put a Smash Bros. Type experience on the DS. Of course, I later realized reality is a bitch, and Smash Bros. DS never happened. Mario Kart came to the DS, Metroid Prime came to the DS, Diddy Kong Racing was on DS, we got Star Fox on DS, 2 Zelda games, all of this stuff, and no Smash Bros. We had to wait until the Nintendo 3DS for Smash Bros. On a handheld for the very first time. And you know what? I can tell why they waited for the 3DS to put Smash Bros. On a handheld, because Smash Bros. 3DS, while it is compromised, it's also not super compromised at the same time. They definitely have to scale back certain things, even going as far as to make significant changes to the character roster. Zelda can't transform into Sheik mid-match anymore. Pokemon Trainer got cut down to just Charizard, and of course, everybody's beloved Ice Climbers. And of course, the general amount of content in this game isn't as overflowing as Brawl or its companion title on the Wii U. They definitely cut a fair amount of modes from this, and for the most part, Smash Bros. 3DS kind of just keeps a lot of the bare essentials when it comes to the modes. There's no story mode, there's no event match. They didn't put Special Smash in there. Now you get Classic mode, All-Star mode, the brand new Smash Run, and more or less about it. I do really love this game, but you can definitely tell it was a bit of a struggle to get as uncompromised of a Smash Bros. Experience on the 3DS as possible. And they did it, but obviously they had to cut back on a couple of the non-essential things for a modern Smash Bros. They had to cut back on this game. Lord only knows what Smash on the DS would have been like. But I know I'm not alone with wanting Smash Bros. On the DS. I've seen loads of fans talk about the potential of Smash Bros. On DS. There are fans that made 3D models of what characters would look like in a DS version of Smash Bros. People made fan box arts of a Smash Bros. DS or rosters and whatnot. So humor me for a bit. I just kind of want to shoot the shit a little bit as to what I would have liked to see from a Smash Bros. DS and just kind of throw shit at the wall, just see what sticks. What I think would have made sense, knowing what I know about the DS in terms of like limitations comparing to other games that released around the time period. What would have been a probable Smash Bros. For DS experience? Well, firstly, I've only ever imagined this game being called Super Smash Bros. DS. My brain always pictured this being a cutback DSified version of Smash Bros. Brawl. I imagine it's almost kind of like the inverse of what happened with New Super Mario Bros. And New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Now, the Wii version came out first here, and then you get a DS version. Timing for when I think this game would have be around early 2010, just because the DS was kind of starting to lose steam in the later half of its life. Looking back at the DS's library, pretty much all of the DS heavy hitters that weren't Pokemon kind of launched before like 2007. After that, it's not like no good games came out for the DS. But I just kind of feel like after 2007, I just remember Nintendo advertising the exact same games over and over and over again from like 2006. Like they would just keep on talking about Brain Age, Nintendogs, New Super Mario Bros., Mario Kart. I think putting out a Smash Bros. DS sometime in the first half of 2010, I think that would have done pretty damn well. We still would have had a long enough gap between that and when the 3DS launched in the first half of 2011. But I don't think it would have been weird. Either way, it doesn't matter because Nintendo was still supporting the hell out of the DS like around the 3DS launch with stuff like Pokemon Black and White, and later in 2011 you had Kirby Mass Attack and a new Professor Layton, and then you had Pokemon Black and White 2 and Pokemon Conquest in 2012. So it's like when they were pumping out all those Pokemon games, would a Smash Bros. Game really be that out of the question for them to put out around that time too? Now, graphically speaking, I think there's definitely debate to be had. Would they have gone the 3D model route or would they have used 2D sprites? Because Smash Bros. Game has never officially used 2D sprites for the characters. However, there's numerous fan games out there which show yes, you could use sprites for the characters. It could work. But I feel like officially speaking, Nintendo considers Smash Bros. To be a 3D fighting game. I mean, like obviously it's from a 2D perspective, but the characters need to be 3D for Smash Bros. To fully work. They use 3D models since the day they debuted. I think they probably want to use 3D models on the DS version, even if things get a little hairy. But I want to talk about what I think the character roster would be. And this is where things are tricky because I think if they would do a Smash Bros. On DS, they would really treat it like how they do like a major new Smash Bros. Entry. Like, oh, this is the sequel to Brawl. I think they would treat it like this is a DS Smash Bros. Game. As much as this is a full Smash Bros. Experience, there are concessions that had to be made. And I think a big thing is imagining how a Smash Bros. Game would play on the DS. You look at the 3DS game and they had to put outlines on the characters because the camera pulls back so far in so many Smash Bros. Stages, then it becomes way too hard to see the characters. I'm just imagining that being a mega problem on the DS. Not only is the processing power worse, but the DS screens are only in 4:3. I almost feel like an aesthetic choice for this game would be more of a kind of chibi art style. You know, something where all the humanoid characters have big old heads, they might not be as anatomically complicated. You know, because I'm kind of looking at something like say some of the 3 remakes of the Final Fantasy games on DS. The way characters look in those games. I'm just saying with 4:3 mini screen, you're gonna have to be able to see the characters pretty well. And I think they might have had to cut some characters or heavily redesign them so then they are visible on the DS screen. This is what I'm thinking from a lot of the characters that were from the 64 game. I think for the most part all of them are safe, but I'm not sure if Captain Falcon, Ness, or Jigglypuff would have made it because Jigglypuff was almost gonna get cut in Brawl and they added them at the last minute. And to be fair, Jigglypuff made it in Smash 64 just because Jigglypuff was an easy character to add just because it was so similar to Kirby. But still, I mean, there's limited space on a DS cartridge. If they were considering cutting Jigglypuff from Brawl, I don't know if Jigglypuff's making it in Smash Bros. DS. Here's one funny little thing I'm gonna add. Even though I said Jigglypuff was gonna get cut from Brawl, so cut Jigglypuff from Smash Bros. DS. Toon Link almost didn't make it into Smash Bros. Brawl and they decided to add Toon Link at the last minute. But I will say this: if they were to make a Smash Bros. DS, I think Toon Link would have just been Link in the game. I think that would have just been the Link in Smash Bros. DS. Yes, the version of Link you saw on the DS with Fan Hourglass and Spirit Track. I think that fit perfectly with what I think this DS game's art style would have been. Samus, I think they make her look kind of similar to how she looked in Metroid Prime Federation Force, which is a 3DS game, yes, but you know, she definitely kind of like that chibi style with like big old head, smaller body, all that. I think it would have worked on the DS and a Smash Bros. Type experience. Fox is tricky, but Star Fox Command was on the DS. I think Star Fox was still an important franchise in Nintendo around that time, even if there wasn't like a ton of activity going on. I think Fox being a cartoony little animal, I think you could have redesigned him to kind of fit with this aesthetic. Kirby's Kirby, Pikachu's Pikachu. I think you gotta have Luigi. I think they would still do Zelda, but similar to Link, they would give Zelda kind of the Toon Zelda design. I think it would be cool if they would have done Toon Zelda can transform into Tetra. But of course, if they had problems doing the character transformation mechanics on the 3DS, I don't think that would have been here on the DS. I think Peach and Bowser would be there. I think they do Mr. Game & Watch just because, okay, why not? The DS could run a Mr. Game & Watch. If the DS can't run a Mr. Game & Watch character, shoot me. I don't know programming. I'm sorry. I don't know programming. You know what I'll say? I don't think third-party characters would have been in this game. I don't think they were going to try to one-up Smash Bros. Brawl. It was more so going to be, let's try to get this on the DS. But I think they would have had some new characters that were a bit more on the DS or handheld side of history. First newcomer, Starfy. This was around the time that they finally brought a Starfy game out of Japan. The legendary Starfy franchise has just always been in Japan. There's so many Starfy games on the Game Boy Advance, and then they made a DS one, and it finally came out of Japan, and that's all we got. I know for a DS entry, I think this would have been a pretty cool opportunity to kind of give Starfy more of a spotlight, showcase the character a bit more, especially at this time when they're trying to make this character finally work outside of Japan. Professor Layton. I've always wanted Professor Layton in Smash Brothers. Now, I did say they were not doing any third-party characters in this Smash Brothers DS game, and Layton is technically a third-party character. Layton is owned by Level 5, but at the time, every single Layton game was getting published by Nintendo outside of Japan. Layton's always been, in my opinion, an honorary Nintendo franchise, and I think around this time, Layton would have made a ton of sense to be here. Of course, you would have Pokemon representation, and Pokemon Trainer wouldn't be able to be done on the DS. Mewtwo was in Melee Purgatory at the time, so I brought him back. Like I said, I made an executive decision and decided Jigglypuff probably wouldn't be here. I think Lucario might have a reason to come back just because, Lucario was from the DS generations, and Lucario was still a big deal. I don't know what I'm talking about here, though. So I'm saying there'd be two more Pokemon characters. You either have Lucario or a different Pokemon of the week, and then maybe a third Pokemon character. There'd be another new Pokemon character of the week. I don't know. Sam, pick a Pokemon. What would a Pokemon character be in the Smash Brothers?
So I think that makes Gen 5. They like to tease Pokemon too early sometimes, so the monkeys would be funny. I don't think they would. The monkeys could be funny. No, I think the monkeys will work. Use some cool ability. That or just a duck.
Alright, we're sticking with DS-centric things. I really have a character. Now, fans of Data Mine Smash Brothers 4, and they found evidence that there might have been plans for a Rhythm Heaven character in that game. And that kind of correlated with the Gamatsu League, which was a big deal back during the Smash 4 days, where they said the chorus kids from Rhythm Heaven DS were going to be a character. I don't think they specifically found it in the Smash Brothers code. Like, oh yeah, here's the exact character and everything. No, they saw data for an icon representing the Rhythm Heaven series, implying that there would have been a character with that icon representing that series in the Fighter Rock, which implies that maybe the Gamatsu League was correct, but it was just outdated because it also said that Chrom was going to be in the game, and Chrom was not a fighter in Smash 4, but Robin was, and they made fun of the fact like, oh wow, Robin's the fighter in the game, and Chrom isn't. Of course, considering all this, Rhythm Heaven character got cut for Smash 4, and by the time Smash Ultimate came around, they didn't care enough to revive that idea. So okay, but Rhythm Heaven is so good, and around this time they were really pushing Rhythm Heaven on the DS with Beyonce in the ass. They would have probably put a Rhythm Heaven character in Smash Brothers DS. I swear. I don't think this kind of goes alongside why they would possibly put Mr. Game & Watch in the game and cut other beloved characters, because Mr. Game & Watch would probably be easy to put in the DS game, and same with the Rhythm Heaven character because they probably be in 2D. Next up, I want Dr. Kawashima from Brain Age. This would possibly be our very first real-life person in Smash Brothers as a playable character. I think a low polygonal floating head would be kind of cool, and you could incorporate a lot of mappings in his moveset. Hell, if you really wanted to, you could throw some big Brain Academy references into his moveset because I don't think they put Dr. Lobe in the game. Going back to Dream Fighters, I think they have Wario there. Wario had a huge role on the Wii and DS, especially the fact that Smash Brothers Wario really does focus kind of on WarioWare, and around this time they'd be putting out WarioWare DIY on the DS too. So I think Wario would be here. Now, would they include Fire Emblem characters? Of course, like I said, they would have to redesign them to be goofiest looking. I think they probably do Marth. I think they would just do Marth though. I think you would just have one Fire Emblem character, which goes against this being a Smash Brothers game because there can't just be one. But kind of what I've been saying with a lot of the newcomers, I think Smash Brothers DS would more so be used as an advertising vehicle than other Smash Brothers games. Even though every Smash Brothers game has been used as an advertising vehicle for other franchises. But I think because this would probably be more like a goofy little side game rather than, oh my god, the next major Smash Brothers. I think they would always consider the legacy of Smash Brothers and characters that have been there for a while. But they would also consider like, okay, who has a game coming out right now that we really want to play? And Fire Emblem had Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon on the DS, which Marth is the star of that game. So I think yeah, sure, put Marth in there. In terms of newcomers, it's kind of tricky because I think Animal Crossing would be a wise choice to include. But of course, back during the Brawl days, Sakurai was against putting an Animal Crossing character in there because he thought that it was like, oh, that doesn't make sense. They don't fight. But then by the time we got to Smash 4, he obviously got to change of heart. But I'm wondering if that change of heart would have happened by Smash Brothers DS. Hell, I haven't even discussed the Sakurai. What even making this game? Just keep in mind, Sakurai is incredibly hands-on with Smash Brothers. As much as he might say, oh man, I'm getting too old for this shit, he always comes rolling back. He can't just let Smash Brothers be. So around this time, Sakurai would have been working on Kid Icarus Uprising for the 3DS. But imagine if he wasn't working on Kid Icarus Uprising for the 3DS. Oh my god, that opens up a whole new can of worms. So if Sakurai's making this game and not Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS, would Kid Icarus Uprising ever get made? Is that on the docket to be done after Smash Brothers DS gets completed? Because if Kid Icarus Uprising is on the docket, I'm sure they would want to bring Pit back from Brawl. So Sakurai would be spending his time on a lesser version of Smash Brothers on the DS. Okay, hypothetically, let's just say this is done by some B team. Let's just say Nintendo Software Technology is making this game. Who are they? Well, they are the only game development studio based in Nintendo of America. Nintendo of America mostly is just here for localization and marketing. But they do develop some games like the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. That's pretty much all Nintendo Software Technology does. But they've also worked on plenty of other stuff. Metroid Prime Hunters, Ridge Racer 64, and Ridge Racer DS. So why am I picking them to be making Smash Brothers DS? I don't even know. They could be anybody. I think it's just to me, Nintendo Software Technology just seems like jack of all trades. It just throw shit at them. Just be like, hey, can you do this? And then they're like, sure. The fact they developed Metroid Prime Hunters, I think shows that like, okay, they have a great understanding of the DS hardware. They know how to put console experiences on here. And yeah, they can do good work on a franchise they didn't develop. Metroid Prime was a Retro Studios joint, and they picked it up with Prime Hunters, which is one of the worst Prime games, but it's not really their fault. It's kind of just down to the fact that it's like, yeah, it's the DS Metroid Prime. Of course, it's not going to be the best. Okay, so from that perspective, they're just going to work on this game. Maybe Sakurai's giving notes here and there. Not that he really would. I think he would want to be super hands-on with this game. But again, let's just do some hypothetical bullshit right now. Because I think no matter what, Sakurai was going to make Kid Icarus Uprising, and Kid Icarus Uprising got announced at E3 2010. So I think it would make sense if Smash Brothers DS came out in early 2010. You put Pit in the game because Kid Icarus Uprising is coming out. And because the new team, screw it, Animal Crossing character. Which one? I think Sakurai obviously would choose Villager, and Isabelle wasn't a thing yet. Honestly speaking, I think they might do Tom Nook. I think Tom Nook is going to be a playable character in this game. There we go. Cool. I made my statement. Overall, that puts me at 23 characters in the game. I don't think this is a perfect roster. This isn't like my dream roster or anything. I'm just shooting the shit right now. As to, oh, what would they put in a DS version of Smash Brothers around the time? I think 23 characters makes sense. That is less than Brawl and Melee. Yes, there's potential they could bring back some clone characters or create brand new ones. But of course, clone characters are kind of brought in. And you look at your development timeline and you look at the capabilities of your system. And you go, yeah, we can do that. So fundamentally, I can't really look at this list and be like, oh, for sure they can throw Pichu in here. Because like, I don't know. In a perfect world, yeah, sure, throw them in there. But also in a perfect world, the Smash Brothers on DS has a billion characters and is the best game ever made. And you know that's not going to happen. So this is just my DS character list right now. Pretty much what I think they would prioritize in Smash Brothers DS. Stage-wise, I think that might honestly be trickier than characters just because it's the DS. You can't go too big or elaborate with these stages. So I honestly think a lot of the stages in Smash Brothers DS would be very similar in feel to the stages we got in Smash Brothers on the N64. Now, I don't think they would be as abstract as the Smash 64 stages are. Like Peach's Castle on Smash 64. What the even is that? I feel like most of them would be kind of along those lines when it comes to complexity. So first up, Battlefield and Final Destination will be. Next up, when it comes to Mario, I think they would do a new Super Mario Brothers stage. I don't think they go for anything that crazy. I think it would probably just look very similar to like the World 1 Grassland. The background is just from World 1 and it's just kind of like some more platforms in the sky pretty much. But I think they would also bring back the Mushroom Kingdom stage from Smash Brothers 64 just because I think that should be fairly easy. You know, it's themed entirely around the original Super Mario Brothers. I can see that working on DS. For Zelda stage, I think it's tricky because if we want to represent a DS Zelda game, you have Phantom Hourglass, which is pretty much based on Wind Waker, and you have the Pirate Ship stage from Brawl. And then you also have Spirit Tracks, which got a stage in Smash Brothers 3DS. So I honestly kind of feel like maybe for this game they would have just done like a more like an early version of Spirit Train from Smash 3DS. You know what? Just like Mushroom Kingdom, I think they bring back Hyrule Castle. Looking at the Zelda stages from Melee, Temple, that's not going over to the DS game. Great Bay I think has more of a shot just because like the layout's smaller, it's a bit more simple. But still, I mean, at this point in time, I think it makes more sense to focus on like Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass, or like the super old school stuff. Like, oh yeah, this is Hyrule Castle from Smash 64. Especially the fact that we're focusing on Toon Link and Toon Zelda in this game. Just have like a random Majora's Mask stage just kind of feels like okay. You know, I think they make some interesting cuts for this game. I don't think Yoshi would get a stage. You know, Yoshi in Smash Brothers has strangely always been considered to be a part of his own franchise. You know, Yoshi always has that egg icon. It's always like, oh, Yoshi's from the Yoshi series. Which I mean, thinking about it, I'm kind of like, come on, guys. It gets to the point where it's like, okay, guys, like why not make Luigi a part of his own franchise? You know, he has Luigi's Mansion. Why not put Peach in her own franchise? Oh, you got Super Princess Peach and Showtime. But I think for this game, if they would put Yoshi on like Yoshi's home stage or anything, I think they would just put him in the Mushroom Kingdom stage or something. For a Donkey Kong stage though, I think they're gonna go for something a bit retro. Primarily because around this time, Donkey Kong was kind of in a weird place. 2010 was when the franchise really came back swinging with Country
Was
Returns.
that
But
a
early
meme?
2010, there wasn't really a ton of like massive actual Donkey Kong stuff
I
going on.
had
It was
no
kind of like
idea
Mario vs.
it was
Donkey
a
Kong
meme.
or DK Jungle Climber way earlier in the DS's life. So I think for a Donkey Kong stage in Smash Bros. DS, I think they're going full blown retro with this. Of course, they did do like 75M in Smash Bros. But here I think they're gonna go a little stupid. It's gonna be Donkey Kong 3 stage. I'm picking Donkey Kong 3. It's just like that first major stage in Donkey Kong 3. I mean, look at those platforms, man. That's so simple. That could work on a DS. Stage like 75, honestly, like all of the stages in the OG arcade Donkey Kong, they're all
I don't
big,
know.
man. I can't really see those being super usable on a DS screen. Donkey Kong 3, sure, you can probably make that work. Samus will get a Metroid Prime Hunter stage, and I'm not specifying because I barely played Metroid Prime Hunter, so I cannot tell you a single unique location from that game specifically. Dr. Kawashima will get a Sudoku stage, where they're doing Sudoku in the background, and they get a column filled out. I don't know. Stuff happens on the stage. Like, WarioWare would get a WarioWare DIY theme stage, where it would be very similar to the WarioWare stage in Brawl, but everything looks shitty. Everything looks like a 3-year-old drew it or something. So that's also a way they can get around the graphical limitations. Like, oh, now it looks crappy. Also, there's only gonna be like 3 different micro games that could happen on that stage. Like, oh, well, watch out, a micro game is coming. It's the same one from 30 seconds ago, but still, I don't think Mr. Game & Watch, Martha, Pit would get any stages. I think those would be concessions they would make to fit everything on a DS card. Star Fox, you could do like a basic retro looking stage. It's just Corneria from Star Fox 1, where you're battling on top of the R-Wing, and it's all like 16-bit super FX chip visuals. Rhythm Heaven stage, I could see working very similarly to the WarioWare stage, where it kind of just shifts between like a couple of different Rhythm Heaven mini games from the DS game. You could also reference some stuff from the original Rhythm Heaven on GBA. I think they're probably doing a Pokemon stage, and then also bring back maybe Saffron City from 64. I think Smash DS would have taken more from Smash 64 than we saw Brawl do, because Brawl didn't have any 64 stages available to play. They only had old Melee stages. So I think the simple nature of these stages, plus the fact that we haven't seen them since Melee in some cases, makes them pretty decent candidates to be here in Smash DS. I also think they would do a stage from Kirby Superstar to kind of promote Kirby Superstar Ultra. Could be a new Kirby stage. I don't know. Kirby Superstar is already like one of the main Kirby games Smash Brothers take stage ideas from. You got Halberd, and then you have the Great Cave Offensive. The immediate thought I had was like Dynabird's Nest. Not even that would be like, oh wow, crazy stage idea. I don't even think Dynabird could like play that much of a role in terms of like, oh wow, a boss character or something, because I don't know how well the DS could run all of this. In my head, I'm only really picturing this as like traditional Kirby Superstar sprites, and then you have the 3D models from Smash DS on top of them, kind of like one of the standard like retro looking stages Smash Brothers has. I think they could probably bring back PictoChat from Brawl. It might not be like a one-to-one recreation. It might be kind of like a pretty dumbed down version of PictoChat, but it's Smash DS. You can't just not have it there. Same with Hannonbow. Not that Hannonbow is all too amazing of a stage, but I do think this is a very appropriate place for Hannonbow considering from Electroplankton it was on the DS. Of course, that stage is a big overall, so I think again it would be like a one-to-one recreation. They might either just call it Hannonbow, and they might just call it like Hannonbow 2, even though it would be a dumbed down version of it. Of course, I think there needs to be some more generic stages. We're gonna have characters like Marth and Pit, but they're not gonna have home stages potentially. So I decided to just throw some random ass DS game ideas here. Personal trainer cooking. I don't know what the stage would be. I'm just kind of imagining big pictures of food that get chopped up and stuff. Maybe the platform you're on is genuinely a big ass Nintendo DS. Maybe forks and spoons come into the fray, and those are like extra platforms on top. You see food getting prepared in the background as food on the DS screen is being shown, like your recipe book and all that. And then I was thinking, what's maybe like a retro style stage with a lot of 2D elements that could be kind of a this stage could house any character. Who the hell cares? Picto-Bits. The SiWare game that released in 2009, and it's themed entirely around 8 NES characters. I've always thought a Tetris stage in Smash Brothers would be really cool, but it does seem like Nintendo's always been kind of like weird about Tetris in Smash Brothers. Yeah, you have like the Tetris theme in Smash Brothers Brawl, and then you have Tetris Spirits in Smash Brothers Ultimate. But for the most part, Tetris is kind of in a weird little place. Which a Tetris DS stage would have been really cool because then you can incorporate all the 8-bit characters you see in Tetris DS and whatnot, in addition to it being a full-blown Tetris stage. But see, I think Nintendo is far more willing to work with Tetris these days. I mean, you see Tetris 99, and then you also got Tetris NES and Tetris Game Boy, Tetris DX on Game Boy Color, all on Nintendo Switch Online. I got 3D Tetris and V Tetris in the Virtual Boy library on NSO too. But back in the DS age, I think they would probably offer something that they just wholly own, and I think they would do Picto-Bits. For Animal Crossing stage, I think they would just bring back Smashville from Brawl. The background would be so and crunchy looking, but for the most part, Smashville is small enough that I think that would work perfectly fine on DS. I think they would bring back Flat Zone from Melee because Flat Zone from Melee is so unbelievably simple. It is literally just like one Game & Watch game compared to Flat Zone 2, which goes through a bunch of them. So I think they would do that. And I don't think this is a very super realistic stage count. It's just kind of me like thinking on the spot, like what could they possibly do? That is about 21 stages, which is less than Brawl, less than Melee. Now I am looking at this and I am thinking this is a fair amount of content. I'm a little worried as to if this is too much for a Nintendo DS game, but you know I think it's more reasonable than it's not. I don't look at this like it's like oh my god, what the f is this? They couldn't possibly do this. Like no, I think this is more on the reasonable side of things. So I'm cool with capping it off there. In terms of modes, I'm kind of looking at like Smash 3DS and going okay, what can we cut from this? And Smash Run obviously wasn't going to be in Smash DS. I think they would do a classic mode that is pretty similar to Brawl and Melee's. I think All-Star mode would still be there, but in terms of trophies, I don't think there's going to be trophies. I think they would probably do something along the lines of stickers in Brawl or spirits in Smash Bros. Ultimate, where it's kind of just a bunch of PNGs. However, unlike spirits and stickers, these PNGs don't have any like stat boosts or anything. There's not going to be really any customization when it comes to the characters here. Of course, I don't think they could call them stickers because that's what stickers were in Brawl. Can't call them trophies because they aren't trophies. You know what I think they would do? I think they would call them stamps. I think they would probably have a similar thing to the little sticker album kind of thing you can do where you can create your own little cards in Smash Bros. Brawl. But what I think they would really focus on with it being a DS game is the wireless communication angle of it all. Being able to send people your own little sticker cards that you create. You can place your stamps wherever you want on there, and you can doodle the DS stylus to create just a little piece of artwork and send it to people. Multiplayer wise, obviously everybody wants their own game cartridge, but I think they would let you do DS download play, but you can only play on Battlefield, and anybody that downloads the game, they can only play as Mario. I don't think Special Brawl or Special Smash will be here. The DS can't handle that. I don't think you would have event matches. I think you would have a challenge wall, but I think the only major unlockables here would be more stamps, maybe some characters, maybe some stages, and I think they would do online, but I think it would be even more limited than Brawl, which is shocking. But yeah, this game already seems like it's pretty jam-packed as a Smash Brothers game for the DS. You know, I'm just kind of recently thinking, what's lesser than Smash 3DS so it could kind of stand on its own game. And that's why I want to just throw the question to you because I was just bullshitting here for a while. I'd really love to hear what you think a Smash Brothers DS would kind of look like. Because to wrap it up for me, I think they would kind of make it a bit derivative of Brawl in terms of how it looks and feels, but they would definitely like scale back a piss ton of the content. And I think it would be more focused on the recent things going on the handheld side of things compared to any other Smash Brothers game. Smash 3DS had a pretty big focus on Nintendo's handheld side of things. And I do think a Smash DS game would do the same thing, but I feel like they would go even heavier in on like making this more about like, oh, what's new on the DS side of things? What should we push more? Because fundamentally, Smash 3DS still felt like a new Smash Brothers game. It felt like the next step after Brawl, even though in many regards it was lesser than Brawl. But you know, that was to be expected. It was a companion release with Smash Wii U, which wasn't as lesser than Brawl. Smash Brothers DS would be a lesser release, so it would almost have to be completely designed as if it's like just a little handheld kind of weird spin-off Smash Brothers game. But like I said, I'd love to hear what you think a Smash Brothers DS would be, mainly because it would make me feel better about the fact that I have literally spent the past 2 hours sitting here talking about a game that will never happen and was never going to happen. It wouldn't happen any other way. Hey y'all, Scott here. I didn't get a chance to say it yet, man. I must be off my game. Back in the day, I would never squander the chance to throw this game into the toilet and say what I need to say. Maybe I need something to revitalize that passion I once had. Bring me back to my roots. Show me why I do what I do. This game blows. Oh, that wasn't the game.
Right.
Again, 2 new YouTube products are now available for pre-order. A Scott the Boss This Game Blows figure with full toilet included, and a new set of monitor buddies for Jab and Rexmo. So paired quite nicely with the Scott and Geriatrics ones released last year. Which, if you still want those, you can find them on our very own Blue Border store while supplies last.
No.
These products will be available for pre-order for only 4 weeks, and pre-order should ship out in Q4 of this year. In other contractually obligated news, I'll be at 2 games in Oaks, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
June 26th to the 28th, and also be at Southeast Game Exchange in Greenville, South Carolina, from July 17th to the 19th. Me and the rest of the Blue Border Entertainment crew will be there doing meet and greet, signings, panels. If you be at any of those events, we'd love to meet you, greet you, all the above. But other than that, I want to take this as an opportunity to thank you all for sticking with me. I know the rate of uploads to the Scott the Boss channel have been, to put it nicely, being revolting. But a lot of that is due to me figuring out a lot in the background, creatively, professionally, personally. The big struggle for me the past couple of years has been figuring out how to make this all sustainable for as long as possible. Because going at the rate I was when I first started, let me burn out in late 2021. And after that, I think my struggle to keep things consistent has been pretty obvious. On top of that, I committed myself to multiple Scott the Boss episodes that were way too ambitious. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy with these episodes, but I'm more happy I'm done with them. All that to say, I'm sorry for the long wait between uploads. However, I gotta say, like, I feel so much more fulfilled and healthy doing things the way I do them now. I know I put out a lot more on Scott Stash, but that's a different thing at this point. I don't prefer doing those videos to Scott the Boss, but doing those videos help me maintain a much healthier work balance. It's more fun to record for that channel, but it's far more creatively fulfilling to make Scott the Boss episodes. So I love doing both. Recording the unscripted stuff for that channel is weirdly therapeutic in many ways, just because there's not the same kind of pressure that goes into writing a full script and editing everything and filming, performing the script in front of the camera. But that doesn't mean I prefer it to doing that. I think at the end of the day, that's my bread and butter, is doing scripted stuff like Scott the Boss. But Scott Stash kind of helps me by adding a variety to the things I do. Plus, it's enabled me to hire my longtime friends to work with me and we started to take control of everything ourselves. Like the Blue Border store, which is entirely ran and operated by us now. Everything over there is shipped out by Justin. And yeah, all of this is more more work. It's more work to be pumping out more stuff on Scott Stash. It's more work to be running a merch store all by ourselves. But it's work that I'm incredibly lucky to be able to do. And it's honestly incredibly fulfilling to work with an in-house team that I trust to be able to be hands-on with every single little thing I put out. It feels good. I'm one of the luckiest people in the world to be able to do this, and I really appreciate all of you for putting up with my bullshit. And to get to the point where this kind of junk can be made, came full circle. I'm a madman. So yes, new YouTube stickers are available for 4 weeks. I'll be at Too Many Games and Southeast Game Exchange. And now that Wii U Part 3 is done, hopefully the wait between episodes won't be nearly as long because I don't have any major 1 to 2 to 3 plus hour long episodes planned for the foreseeable future. So more Scott the Woz episodes should be coming sooner than later. And there's always something coming out on Scott Stash. I'll have to say thank you very much for everything.
Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on Xion. Overwatch just dropped its 52nd hero, and dare I say, she might be one of the best heroes ever added to Overwatch. In today's video, we're going to go over her archetype, her lore, all of her abilities, her perks, how to play her, and how to play against her. By the end of this video, you'll know more about Xion than 95% of the player base, so let's get into it. First, what is Xion's playstyle? She's a new DPS hero built for flanking. Her job is to bypass the enemy front line and execute the squishy high-value targets in the back. There's plenty of heroes in Overwatch just like this. Tracer, Genji, Reaper, Sombra. She very squarely falls into that category. The Overwatch team explicitly cited John Wick and Oren Ishii from Kill Bill as their major inspiration for the character, and early in development, she actually had a Devil May Cry inspired like stylish range combo meter that provided combat buffs for chaining her abilities together. They cut it because I thought it was too hard to balance, but it would have been really cool, and you can definitely see that inspiration in her character. In general, Xion is a backline assassin who wants to close gaps, steal, and get out. Xion leads the Hashimoto criminal organization. She's an Omnic who turned herself into a living icon of hatred. You don't run an outfit like the Hashimoto clan by playing it safe, you get their overbody. So let's talk about the bodies. After the awakening caused by Aurora, Xion awoke in the middle of the battlefield. She was scared and survived the streets of Tokyo by killing anyone and everyone she came across. She was eventually captured by the very group of criminals who go on to found the Hashimoto clan. She was their prisoner and glorified training dummy. Also, based on her appearance, some other very sinister stuff may have been taking place, but we're not going to get into that here. While she was in possession of the Hashimoto clan, she waited, and eventually she seized her opening, broke free, and murdered all 4 of the Hashimoto elders. Then, standing over the slaughter, she created a 5th seat on the council for herself and forced the survivors she chose to spare to fight for the right to rule by her side. That's how she took the throne. Beyond that, let's talk about her physical appearance because it ties into her lore. She's an Omnic in a white suit with white hair, and the developers built her to make her skin crawl on purpose. Her facial features only shift between preset expressions, but she never blinks. Her mouth doesn't move at all when she talks. She speaks through her throat, and even added extra metal plating to her chest during her design phase just to push the mechanical wrong feeling further. She's kind of meant to give you like an uncanny valley feeling that's very deliberate. So there's your general breakdown of Xion and her backstory. Now let's get into her actual kit. Xion's primary weapons are the Kira pistols, which were made by Toshiro Yamagami, Hiroko's father. He's famous for being the guy who's able to harness the power of anima, and put them into weapons like Hiroko's, Genji's, Hanzo's, and now Xion's. Her pistols are short to mid-range hit scan weapons. They give her a rhythm you'll immediately compare to Tracer. As you hold down the primary fire button, you'll alternate between shooting 2 shots out of each pistol. If you've ever melted a backline support with Tracer's pistols, you already understand the feel here. They do 35 damage in range, and they have a pretty short fall-off distance, so you want to try and stay pretty close to medium range with her. Her pistols are basically her bread and butter. Everything else in her kit exists to get you into pistol range and back out alive. And once you've worn someone down with the pistol, she's got a button to finish the job. But quick pause. Yes, this is a PowerPoint presentation about Robot Motorcycle, and yes, I made it on purpose. If you're enjoying it, hit the subscribe button so I can keep getting away with this. Execution is Xion's finisher. She fires an X-shaped volley designed to pick off targets with a decent amount of range and a real knack for securing kills from distances you wouldn't expect. It deals 140 damage with a 5-second cooldown. You can hold the ability down to tighten its spread. We'll talk about her perks in more detail later, but if you pair execution with the Ex Machina perk, it deals 20% more damage to any enemies that are below half health. This is great for executing people. If you're close to someone, it's really not necessary to hold the ability down to tighten its spread. He'll get the job done. 140 damage is nothing to scoff at, and it definitely feels like a very powerful ability in her kit. A very important tip I can give you here on playing Xion is that if you go into your settings for her and go to your reticle, you can go to weapon mode and change it to execution. Then you can turn on bloom, and your reticle will actually show you the tightening of the crosshair as you hold down the button for this ability. It's very, very useful to know what your actual spread is going to be because the amount of time you can hold down this ability is actually a lot longer than it takes to tighten its spread all the way. Also, important to clarify here, you don't get any extra damage from holding it down. It only tightens the spread. Okay, next we have to talk about one of the best abilities ever in Overwatch. This might be my favorite ability of all time. It's just awesome to play. It's so much fun. Xion's next ability summons a motorcycle. It's called Joyride. It does 60 damage when hitting people, and you can reactivate it while riding to launch it in the direction you're facing. On the ground, the send off can deal up to 130 damage on direct hit and 65 splash damage. If you reactivate the ability mid-air, you can charge it up and send it off for less damage. The air charge deals 100 damage direct hit and 50 splash. However, you do get control where the bike will land a lot better. It sounds crazy, but yes, you literally get on a motorcycle, ride around, jump up into the air with it, stand on it, and then throw it at people, and it blows up. It's really an ability in Overwatch. It's almost as absurd as a cat with a jetpack. Joyride is a great initiator and escape tool with a refill perk. Joyride instantly restores 50 health and regenerates 20 health per second while she's riding it. Escape, engage, damage, and sustain all built into one ability. It's incredibly powerful and on a rather long cooldown because of it. On a 15-second cooldown, you really want to be careful about how you use Joyride. If you use it too early, you're not going to be able to get around the map the way you need to. However, Joyride is not her only mobility tool. Evade is a short dash that grants Xion 75 rapidly decaying overhealth. It's a great survival tool and really good disengaging from fights. It's very similar to Life Weaver's rejuvenating dash for all 12 of you Life Weaver players out there. With the rapid reload perk, using Evade automatically reloads 9 ammo, which is half of her entire 18 ammo clip. As you can imagine, getting half your ammo back from using an ability you were going to use anyway is pretty good. A survival button quickly becomes a damage button, and that's how you can keep the pressure up on this hero. And finally, we have Xion's ultimate, Satsuruku Spree. Xion either rushes forward 3 times in a storm of bullets, or she can choose to shoot at her position without dashing. There are 3 charges of the ult, and it's on a timer. Each volley deals 180 damage in range, giving her 540 damage total if you hit someone with each charge. You're not holding ground with this, you're using it to kill people. It is definitely a kill tool. You can kind of think of it as a safer but less deadly Reaper ultimate. But to be clear, it's still not very safe. You can definitely get killed very easily while using this, so you have to pick your timing wisely. Okay, with Xion's kit out of the way, now let's talk about her perks. Xion's perks give her a little flexibility in her playstyle, and you can change the way you use your dash and bike abilities completely. You've already mentioned some of them through this whole video, but let's dive into the details. Her minor perks are rapid reload, which reloads 9 ammo off of her evade, and Ex Machina, which gives her 20% extra damage to execution to enemies that are below half health. Both of these are very powerful. If you feel like you're going to be able to secure kills yourself, I would recommend going with execution just because it ensures that you finish off those kills. But if you feel like you're going to have a hard time running around the backline, it might be better to go with rapid reload. That way you can keep the pressure up. As for her major perks, the first one is refuel, which instantly restores 50 health and regenerates an additional 20 health per second while she's riding her motorcycle. This gives Xion a good survivability boost if you're struggling trying to stay alive in your engagements. This gives you an almost guaranteed way out of a bad situation combined with the overhealth from evade. But if you're constantly using a motorcycle to heal yourself and stay alive and get around the map, you're not using it for damage, which is a trade-off you have to make. And then we have Faces of Death, which gives Xion every other DPS sub-role passive. In case you've forgotten what those are, you have Sharpshooter, which is where landing critical hits reduces the cooldown on your movement abilities, very strong for her. Flanker, which gives you more health from health packs. Specialist, which is where whenever you eliminate an enemy, you get increased reload speed, and Recon, which is you can detect enemies through walls as long as you damage them and they are below half health. For a flanker, this is very, very powerful. Every single one of these perks enables Xion's kit like no other hero. I personally think this is hands down the only perk you should be taking. It almost feels too strong. It definitely feels like she levels up as a hero as soon as you get all of these. Being able to see people through walls, reload faster, reduce cooldowns through critical hits, and restore more health from health packs on a flanker is ridiculous. I would be surprised if this doesn't get nerfed or changed in some way. Okay, we now know who Xion is, her playstyle, her kit, her perks, how you actually play her. Every Xion game is probably going to look roughly the same. Your flanker, your job is to slip past the enemy front line and hit the backline, the supports, and the fragile DPS you can't fight back. However, you can't just rush in guns blazing with all your abilities or you're going to die. The play is measured aggression. You poke safely from alongside your team so your cooldowns are up, then you flank when you see an opening, probably on your motorcycle. You want to pop Joyride right around the side, find someone that you think you can kill, throw your motorcycle at them, hit them with execute, and then dash out. Very rarely are you going to stay in engagement long enough to initiate with your motorcycle and leave on it. You have to pick one or the other. Personally, I love the damage of the motorcycle, so I try to engage with it and then use the dash to survive getting out. But I mean, obviously, it's going to come down to the moment. And with motorcycles, sometimes you're going to want to start with Joyride and end with evade. You know, it's really just going to depend on the situation. But if you play anything like Reaper, Genji, Tracer, Sombra, the playstyle is going to feel very comfortable for you. Use an ability to get in, do some damage, hopefully kill someone, use the other ability to get out. Your ultimate is where patience really pays off. You can fire it in place or use its dashes to chase, and the smartest line's simple. Initiate in the place first, force the enemy to panic and burn mobility cooldowns to escape, and use the dashes to run them down once they're out of options. This ult combo is great with any other ultimate that keeps people trapped. Any other form of CC is really going to let you pop off with this ultimate as well. You can drop in on people. It's also especially powerful, very similar to Reaper's ultimate. The restraint here is not just dashing all over the place and getting blown up. You really have to wait for a good opportunity. The clean offensive loop here really ties it all together. Link it on the bike, launch the bike at a target, shoot them with your pistols, then go in with the execution to finish, evade for overhealth, and get out. I can gun, finisher, repeat, and if it all goes wrong, those same cooldowns are your way out. Your motorcycle is as much a panic button as it is an engage. You really have to pick and choose where you're going to use it. Okay, cool. So that's how you play Xion. But how do you actually fight her? How do you play against her? Here's the part that surprises people. All that healing and overhealth on her can look terrifying, but it's a trap. Refuel hands her 50 instant health and 20% on the bike, but it falls apart the second real burst damage shows up. Sustain only matters when damage trickles in. If you blow her up with lots of burst damage, she really can't even use her survivability or mobility. Beating Xion starts with discipline, like beating all flankers. Tracker cooldowns, watch her backline like Ozzy Money because her whole game's flanking on the motorcycle. Your team's gotta stay ready to dodge her bike the instant she activates it. Stay spread out when she uses Joyride so she can get less ult charge from the splash damage. She also has really bad range and very little vertical mobility. If you play on the high ground with a character that outranges her like Ashe or Soldier, it can be really difficult for her to ever even get close enough to you to bite you. So her getting a bike launch that you hurts, but she really has no way to follow up unless she's directly on top top of you. And the bike does give her some vertical mobility, but it's often not enough to get on the high ground of, say, Dorado. So high ground, staying out of range, and then blowing her up with burst damage. Those are all your best options. On the draft side, the standard answer for high mobility flankers is heavy crowd control and reliable peel. Mizuki is a top tier pick because you can chain her and then she's basically dead. Cassidy is a pretty rough matchup for her because he wants to fight in that sort of medium range anyway, and then he hits you with a flashbang because she's gotta get close and she's dead. I mean, just think of anything that counters Tracer, and you got a pretty good handle on what's gonna counter Xion. I'll also note that Xion has more range than Tracer. I think you're gonna see a lot of bad Xion players fight this weird bad mid range where she doesn't really work. And if you can play a hero with more range than her in that situation, you can absolutely dominate her. I mean, Ash will still two-shot her even if she's riding around on a motorcycle, so I think heroes like that are also a really good answer. Then comes the kill window, and it's pretty brutal once you spot it. Her passive and her killing get bypassed entirely by high burst damage. If you force her to waste evade on defense, she's either not gonna get the rapid reload sustain that she needs to keep doing damage, or she's gonna use evade for overhelp when she needed it to get out. Now evade's gone and Joyride sitting on a 15-second cooldown and she's stranded with no escape. Catch her the moment she dismounts or throws her bike, and you can collapse on her before she can even understand why she's dead. And there you go. That's Xion from top to bottom. The lore, the guns, the bike, and how to play both sides. Thanks for watching and subscribe.
Steam Workshop, Valve's hub for community mods and add-ons, is being used to smuggle malware on people's PCs through Wallpaper Engine. The app that lets users run animated and custom wallpapers on the desktop. The devastating blow to the fellows who have to tell their dad that the rent money is gone because they trusted a file called cat_girl_waifu_4K. I'm Riley Murdoch, this is TechLead, and security researchers at Kaspersky found dozens of these poisoned wallpaper packages, with some even being downloaded tens of thousands of times. The flaw works because Wallpaper Engine lets a wallpaper be an executable program. It seems like it's running normally, but in the background, it sneaks in a backdoor, finds your Steam login, steals your active session, and sends it to the hackers. Then they use your account to upload more infected wallpapers in a toxic cycle of waifu manipulation. Through this feature, attackers have pushed just about every kind of malware out there, from info stealers, backdoors, crypto miners, and botnet loaders. They're targeting society's most vulnerable members, weebs, hunting for wallpapers of anime women with huge bazongas. It's sad, but when it comes to anime women, these poor weebs have a survival instinct of a sea turtle mistaking a plastic bag for a tasty jellyfish. They need your help. OpenAI's ChatGPT has lost majority market share in the AI assistant space for the first time, falling to 46.4% by the end of May, according to analytics firm Sensor Tower. It's still the clear market leader with over 1.1 billion monthly users, but Gemini has climbed to second place at 27.7%, mostly thanks to Google baking the feature into everything they sell, whether you want it there or not. The timing is rough. Leaked documents from the Financial Times show OpenAI lost nearly $21 billion last year on just $13 billion in revenue, which raises the question of whether it filed its IPO as an AI company or an enterprise-level cash incinerator. But shockingly, this didn't hurt its standing at the G7 this week, where CEO and Orb aficionado Sam Altman got a love tap on the leg from US President Donald Trump and pitched world leaders on who should write the global rules for AI, getting outed for a $21 billion loss, losing your majority in the same week, and still getting a seat at the grown-ups table. Better than having your AI eat you. Snap, the company behind Snapchat, just finally revealed their fully standalone Specs AR glasses, and they've opened pre-orders for a fall release. Weighing 132 grams, they're heavier than normal glasses and chunkier, but lighter than the dumpster you'll need to store your dignity in after spending more than $2,000 on them. Unlike Meta's Ray-Ban display that only gives you a stationary screen on the lens of the glasses, these Specs will overlay elements on real-world objects that stay in place as you move your head around like a VR headset. It apparently has real-time navigation for the directionally hopeless crowd, a floating adjustable browser, live translation, and will answer spatial questions you ask, like, where does the coolant go in this car? Or where did my dad go when he left the computer 15 years ago, never came back? Would you like to find him again? Yes. Turn right. The Specs come with 2 Qualcomm chips, a 51-degree field of view, in-house liquid crystal on silicon display, and auto-tinting lenses that change states in 10 seconds. Now, Snap decided against revealing the chip today or the screen resolution, which is a bit awkward because a spec sheet is pretty much the one thing you'd expect from something called Specs. But hey, you know what? We're not going to worry about
Someone get it
If we're on
right.
a level, particles pop in and out of existence for no reason, and these quick bits are the same, except they only do it because I'm here to observe when I look away. Shit's wild. Microsoft unveiled the new Surface Pro and Surface Laptop models powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon X2 chips this week, promising up to 58% faster graphics and a returning OLED option on the Pro. The catch is the price. The laptop starts at $1,600, nearly double the old one's $900, and the Surface Pro starts at $1,500. But they look a lot like Apple's $600 MacBook Neo. So for one Surface laptop, you could buy 2 Neos and pocket $400 for iTunes songs. I don't. Samsung is cutting product testing for phones and TVs from 15 days to 2, replacing physical torture tests with AI digital twin simulations as part of its 2030 autonomous factory push. They were reportedly bullied by Jensen into doing this. So instead of dropping a real TV for 2 weeks or chucking a phone 700 times, Samsung will just simulate the carnage, which frankly is a betrayal. I bought a Samsung so a guy in a lab coat would keep dropping my TV over and over. Now they're just imagining it. Cowards. Commodore has slapped its name on a random thing once again, this time teaming up with Finnish software firm Jalla on a $500 Linux-based flip phone called the Callback 8020 that hard blocks browsers and social media for a forced digital detox while still running 99% of Android apps. Finally, I can get a flip phone to go with my Commodore filing cabinet, espresso machine, Bluetooth earpiece, and my 1990s MIDI keyboard. Thank you, Commodore, for making all of these things. SanDisk unveiled the Optimus GX Pro, an officially licensed PS5 SSD lineup, topping out at 8 terabytes. The 1 terabyte drive starts at $380, 2 terabytes will cost you $760, and the 8 terabyte comes in at nearly $3,000, which SanDisk insists is a discount from $3,700. Only a year ago, a near identical 8 terabyte SanDisk drive cost around $640, so it's only gone up roughly 370%. Sounds more normal when you say it like that. Or in console math, you could buy 4 PS5 Pros and still have cash left for a game, or a lot of iTunes songs. And NVIDIA's Gear Lab showed off Empire, a framework where AI coding agents teach robots to do delicate physical tasks completely on their own, like slotting a GPU into a motherboard with zero human help. The paper claims to have hit a 99% success rate on challenging tasks requiring manual manipulation, like pushing the letter T, cutting zip ties, tying zip ties, and pin insertion, all running fully autonomously on real robots. So let me get this straight. NVIDIA built a step-by-step framework for mastering manual manipulation with zero human involvement. Sounds like my ex-girlfriend. And sounds like you're gonna definitely be back here on Friday for more tech news. Everyone's talking about it. Or, you know what, don't show up. Quantum mechanics says, I'm only here when you observe me anyway, so I'll just exist in a liminal state or not exist. Bye.
I've also attended the 3-hour preview of Control Resonant, and most of that was played through 3 different parts of the game, the first of which you can see here. I was impressed with the way it was presented. The first of these sections was a standard tutorial sequence where I quickly gained new ways to dash, jump, and hover. I soon felt as though I had enough tools at my disposal to be able to navigate the game's extremely elaborate and disjointed vertically built landscapes. The second part was the evacuation zone, which was essentially one big arena where I could try different loadouts out against swarms of enemies, known as the Hiss. This was all cordoned off, but presumably this area will act as one of the game's hubs, so you can run about doing all sorts of missions for NPCs. But I'm not allowed to show footage from that bit of the game, though. There wasn't really much to show since it was just running about fighting enemies. I've been assured that different hubs have very different looks to them, so it isn't all just dark New York streets. They apparently have another one set in a market sort of place filled with lots of nice light blues and greens, which would be nice. Fortunately, I'm allowed to show the third and final showcase I played through, which was definitely the most interesting one. This one is set roughly halfway through the game, and it showed a mission called Sinkhole. It started with me stood atop a boring device as it was gradually lowered down a sinkhole, stopping along the way so that I could fight enemies in all kinds of abstract looking environments. It didn't hold back. Now, I've not been easy and gently with the earlier showcases. I found this mission very challenging and confusing. My initial concerns with the sequel were that it would no longer feel like Control, because instead of running about the claustrophobic confines of the oldest house, this game is mostly set exploring city, and instead of the first game's emphasis on ranged combat, this one is very much focused around melee combat, but it did still feel like Control. And if I'm honest, I never really liked the combat in the first game, which normally involved running about with my weapons to reload. But here, it's very immediate and frantic, reminding me of the combat in Doom, which is a good thing, because of all the arena combat games I can think of, Doom stands out as being the one with the best thought out gameplay loop and difficulty curve. So hopefully with the sequel, it's become one of the strongest points of it. After playing game a bit, I also got to interview the lead gameplay designer, which I was very happy about because I love talking to people about their passion projects and arguing with them about all sorts of decisions that they've made and why. They really wanted to make the sequel more like an RPG, which means that when you're talking to characters, you get different dialogue options, which on the surface all looks quite different, but I can't help but feel they weren't leading to the same destination. I opted for the choices that I thought would get me distrusted and killed, and sure enough, I remained trusted and unkilled. Also from its RPG aspirations are a bunch of confusing unlock truths, which I browsed through and tried to understand. A lot of these involve gameplay mechanics which weren't featured in the limited demo sequences that I experienced. Honestly, I'm quite indifferent about all this added depth to the RPG systems. Control was, for me, like a blast from the past, a game that felt 20 years old thanks to its refreshingly simple and linear progression, complemented with modern graphics and great writing. And for me, it was the atmosphere of the place and the creative boss fights and ashtray mazes that made it a standout experience. So I guess the rather primitive combat of the original made something more engrossing indeed is probably a step in the right direction. I was worried that it would just become a frantic button mash, especially since you have to trigger each attack manually rather than just holding down an attack button. But I was told this was done to encourage dabbling with combinations. I noticed that compared to other games, this one doesn't clearly indicate when enemies are about to deal damage or when I myself have sustained an attack. I would occasionally look down my health bar and be horrified to discover So I got from full health down to quarter. Especially when new members of the dev team were all watching from my shoulder and analysing my failures. They said this game they want to encourage aggressive play. You don't wait for enemies to come to you. You have to go to them because this time they're the ones often equipped with ranged attacks. And your limited reach means that you have to figure out how to navigate terrain to leap up and to reach some of them in the air. I thought having to fight everyone enemies as a melee character could prove frustrating, but every time you attack in the air, the motion is frozen, which means you can really hack and slash and deal multiple attacks to these creatures who often then come out of the air, allowing you to land finishes on them from the comfort of the pavement. Just like Doom, the 4 enemies seem just to give you health and times of that. You've got double D boss enemies within the arena, whilst still taking time to replenish health in between. But you have finisher moves which shoot your enemy and then lock into the intended target. I admit, I don't have much experience with other melee hack and slash games, but I can say that they have definitely borrowed the best bits from Doom, and that's a good thing. In this game, you have a single melee weapon, which is plugged into the protagonist quite early on, and I have to say, he took it surprisingly well. This one weapon, known as the Aberrant, morphs into different shapes as you activate different kinds of attacks, and I love how wasteful it all feels, because once the attack is done, the weapon then disintegrates and its parts flop limping to the floor. And the jump you're holding grows again, ready for the next button press. I had a lot of fun stacking these parts all over the ground, and unexpected highlights from my playthrough. I've only experienced small and disconnected sections of the game, which probably makes me dislike all the complex tech trees and stuff that will hopefully feel more natural if you're playing through the game from start to finish. For the testing session, we were given lots of respec points, which to me sounds quite gangster, but actually means you just reset your abilities so you can try different combinations. These respec points are limited in number, and I dislike this because the mere fact there's a hard limit on the number of times you can reset your loadout would discourage me from wanting to use it. I was really sure that they weren't that limited in number, but I was like, no, I don't care. I'd rather just commit to what I've got and potentially mess up with an unknown change. And if the goal here was to encourage experimentation, then I personally feel like the better approach would have been to give abilities that you haven't used for a while a slight damage buff for maybe 15 minutes, and then look into using them for 15 minutes before you change them again, which to me would reward experimentation better than the current respec system. You could say that I would respec it more. But it seems like there was a lot of depth to these systems. I'm sorry about the audio quality, by the way. I'm currently homeless in the middle of London trying to record this in a construction site. My phone's microphone's noise cancellation is working overtime here. I asked the devs how all these different attacks and abilities were being balanced, and they said the damage per second between them is supposed to be quite similar, and rather than the annoying 5% damage increase upgrades that you might get in other games, any damage increases you unlock in this one apply across all forms of attacks. So your choices will be more based on preference between range, crowd control, and heavy charged attacks. But there does seem to be a lot of potential for powerful combinations of skills, like one that sets enemies on fire, and then there's another one that drills into them, which compounds to lots of damage over time. So together it can inflict sizable damage, which again will take more time than I had in this demonstration to be able to master, and potentially limited reset points. Just saying, you get a bunch of special attacks, which I found all quite fun. There's a shield which surrounds you with nearby debris, and then if you charge into an enemy with that activated, then it deals damage to them, which is satisfying. There's one that bashes the ground, so the higher you fall from, the more damage it deals, which again was very satisfying whenever I remembered to do it and managed to pull it off. And the third made me punch enemies with big fiery fist things, which I suppose feels like the power of a heavy attack mixed with the charge time of a light one. So these all felt like they contribute to the experience. I was able to discuss the topic of difficulty settings, and they said they would rather focus on getting one right instead of having to test multiple different games. But they have brought over Alan Wake 2's gameplay assist mode, which proved very popular. This lets you fine-tune specific aspects of the experience to cater for your desired playstyle, like say you want unlimited respec points, maybe. I discussed with them the new game plus system, because since the enemies are on level, it should still provide challenging replayability for players who wish to unlock everything across multiple subsequent playthroughs. There's always a balance to be struck here. You want to feel like you're getting more powerful, because otherwise what's the point in leveling? But at the same time, you don't want to outlevel the world entirely, because that just makes playing more a bit pointless because it gets too easy. I'm sure people who want to carry on playing the game don't really want to. So those are the basic ways to go from this. You'll hear from mind take on control, and that means running about staring at walls and which must be confusing to watch me fixate on a particular post or the light shade. I'm sad to say the destruction in the sequel doesn't seem as fun as in the first game, which featured stellar cumulative damage to objects as you run ripped holes through tables and chairs until they would eventually collapse realistically. In this sequel, stuff falls apart, but the melee focus doesn't give you quite the same degree of control over the process. And stuff like fencing and concrete blocks littering the streets will just collapse as you run through them, which teases the greatness but doesn't quite feel as satisfying as in the first game. Luckily, simply attacking and watching weapons parts flop to the floor every time does scratch that same itch, and it developed into a guilty tick as I was rushing through the game's environments. Graphically, the PC I was playing this on contained an Intel 1400K and GeForce 5090. It was running at 1080p, upscaled to 4K, though recording here at only 1080p. So what you're seeing here is pretty much a naked image with the LSS acting just as super sample anti-aliasing, the golden standard. The frame rate was not to 60 for video capturing purposes, which I disliked, so I couldn't say how much headroom this system had beyond that. I wasn't allowed to change the graphic settings. I was informed by someone who did get to play on caps that it did feel very smooth, which of course should expect on a high-end system such as this one. It's all based on the same engine and tech as Alan Wake 2, so expect that level of fidelity and performance from this game, although the environments couldn't look any more different. They were apparently showing this game to all the console presence somewhere else, but me being in the PC area, my experience was fully path racing. Halfway through a dramatic sequence, I did take a time out to roll that around on the floor to see how we left the surrounding environments.
It's
And
a
realized that
remedy
range ended up scaling features apart from DLSS 4.5
You need
reconstruction.
a super high-end PC to play, as usual.
September, so fingers crossed. Visually, I could make out the shimmering around characters in some instances, but other than that, the presentation was pretty much flawless. I didn't encounter any bugs. Other big things I did was the F6 screen capture button, and that kind of froze or crashed the game, but that should be fixed by release. The game seems to handle really difficult lighting conditions with ease. Steering or direct lighting frequency areas and lighting areas. Easily reach the most challenging to attempt to light, so that bodes well. Earlier on in my playthrough, I got to fight a big floating face thing, which wouldn't make much sense in most games, but in Control, it's perhaps one of the more logical things I encountered. This boss fight was hard as balls. The game encouraged aggression, but I was perhaps a little bit too aggressive, making constant beelines for his face when maybe at times I would be better off being repulsed by him.
You don't get a buff for PC, or just wait.
You just have to look at these in your direction and think,
Wait until you get
I
one.
made it through on my first attempt, but only just. I was probably swearing quite a lot when I was on the loadout, scared like an idiot in front of the game's makers. The stakes were high. This being Control, we're all looking for the next Ashtray Maze, which was a memorable music-driven highlight segment near the end of the first game. Definitely worth looking up if you haven't played it yet. Sprinkled throughout my playthrough were marvelous abstract displays of things floating about and glitching all over the place, which is genius because if the game does happen to glitch, you assume it's all past experience. But finally, at the very end of this demo showcase, I got a taste of the Ashtray, and it was delicious. The music kicked in, and I had to follow the flashing TV screens about, using gravity shifts to turn walls and floors and all that. It was like the end bit of that labyrinth movie. It made the whole experience into a bizarre abstract dance, which sounds really confusing, and it probably is. But it was a joy to just feeling it and experimenting with it. And even when I didn't have a clue where I was or where I was heading, it all somehow seemed to lead me closer to where I wanted to get. So it wasn't infuriating at all. It was in fact very intuitive and natural feeling. And I enjoyed the puzzle-like feeling of hopping over the tops of rooms and viewing places that previously confined me in a new light, and then serving as platforms to wait me in my travels. Navigating the environments is a highlight in this game. I'm very aware of all the tricks and techniques that devs use to guide you through environments, which in a game like this is even more important than ever. I noticed early on that you're being led towards the lighter or greener areas of each room, then suddenly I felt drawn towards a red light in one place, and that too turned out to be the right way to head. I felt like they really mastered the art of directing the player in the right direction, and asked them how they did it. And it turns out it isn't a simple answer, just the product of years of playtesting, and it turns out that the look and colour of the environments is one of the last things to be finalised. In a way, this made it even more impressive, knowing that relying on more than just cheap tricks to guide the player through the levels. It's instead the product of years of honing and mastering player psychology. That right there gives me faith in the team's ability to pull this sequel off. Playing Control Resonance was fun and all, but the highlight for me was in meeting the people behind it, to get all nitty-gritty with the game dev talk, and realising how much of my PC gaming journey has been influenced by these guys. My very first PC magazine demo disc had the original Max paid off, and now here I am at their offices experiencing their latest iteration before it's released. I can't put a value on that poetic, almost fairy tale experience. I just wish I could show you myself where I've ended up. And with that, I realised that so many gaming experiences of mine have been lonely. So many thoughts and experiences I've had to keep to myself, but it's stuck in my mind, with me never expecting to get any sort of closure to them. So I can't emphasise enough how unexpected and cathartic it was to be able to meet and talk with the team behind these games, and to let out all those pent-up memories. It doesn't matter that they didn't explain what Alan Wake meant about the lake being an ocean. The fact they laughed at Sebastian showed they understood how I felt. And with that, I felt a release of over the years of therapy suddenly wash over and soothe my mind, as though I finally had closure to something I didn't even know I needed. So to put it simply, Remedy, why are the games you make so weird?
Breaking news, your animated wallpaper from Wallpaper Engine might be malware. Security researchers have warned that attackers are using Steam Workshop to spread malware through Wallpaper Engine wallpaper. I've been seeing a lot of, you guessed it, fear-mongering. Fear-mongering without anyone actually getting into the details of what is going on, and everyone just jumping to conclusions immediately in the replies. It's a tale as old as time itself. I see this literally every time anything like this happens. So I'm going to be a little journalist today and tell you what actually happens, what kind of malware is being spread, and how to check if you're infected. If you don't use Steam Wallpaper Engine, good job. If you do use Steam Wallpaper Engine, you're probably fine and you don't have malware. This is mostly just fear-mongering from what I've seen. The only wallpaper types that can deliver malware to your system are the application type of wallpapers. For some reason, Wallpaper Engine with its infinite wisdom decided to let everyone in the world, literally anybody, upload executable applications as wallpapers. Why? I genuinely have no fucking idea. The only legitimate use these application type wallpapers have is that they are interactable in sometimes like mini video games. So if none of the wallpapers you have are interactable, you're safe. The attackers use two different methods to spread their malware is usually like an archive containing the executable wallpaper alongside the malicious files. Sometimes the exe itself is malicious, sometimes it just has malicious scripts and DLLs. The other method, which I personally observed a lot, is them hiding it in a password-protected archive with the password being able to be found pretty easily in the name, or the comments, or the JSON configuration. Kaspersky did an investigation into these wallpapers, and one of the malicious wallpapers they installed looked completely legitimate. Little Gooner baby maybe, but it worked, and it was interactable. And while this wallpaper is loaded, the exe is loaded called synaptics.exe, which is a backdoor. Also, cachegame1.exe is also executed, which tracks down the Steam app on the computer and hijacks the Steam session to take over your account. If you've ever installed an application type wallpaper, you can check just by going to the wallpaper engine and sorting by application. If you have any applications in there, you can run this command I'm going to leave in the description. You just replace the Steam directory with the path where your Steam is stored, and you run this in PowerShell. The most common one is this, and this is probably where yours is. If any of these MD5 hashes are on your computer, these hashes are from Kaspersky's investigation, and it's the hashes from the most popular and the most common malware that they have found in the whole Steam Workshop wallpaper debacle. Once again, you probably don't have to do this. I see no way anyone actually falls for this unless you're like a turbo gooner and then they install a fucking application type wallpaper that's a fucking exe with 0 reviews and 0 stars, and it just screams malware. Half of these are obvious malware, and the other half might just be a vector for smuggling pornography in China, since it's heavily restricted in that country. This has essentially been a known thing for you. Anyways, here are some of my findings. You'll hear any sort of application.
Smuggling
malicious wallpaper. You can also see a lot of these
China
very provocative
government.
and are designed to bait you into downloading it. What the hell does this mean? Hold on. If I put the full thing in, dog pregnancies. Okay, so this one has one of those codes that you have to type in. I've seen a lot of these like malicious wallpapers have been doing this code thing. What's the extraction code? Yeah. When loading application files in wallpaper engine, or red warning appears by default indicating possible Trojan. Ignore them. Ignore them. So you have this fucking wallpaper of this foot bouncing whatever the fuck this shit is. Now I would never fall for such an attack. I do not bouncing whatever the fuck this shit is. Now I would never fall for such an attack. I do not want them to take my precious kukri knife night stripe field test it. Thank you for watching, everyone. My next video is going to be good. I've had a really funny project in the works for a while now, which may or may not involve me making my own Linux distro that you will be able to install for yourself. It's the best distro ever made. Stay tuned for that. Thank you for becoming a channel member to support the channel. Fucking subscribe. Thank you.
At least the video was in line with the slogan. This is an urgent video for every gamer and developer to watch if they want a pro-consumer graphics industry. This video was supposed to be an 8-minute video, but at this point where I've already edited the main analysis and conclusions, this video is ending up way beyond what I wanted to manage. Stick with me because I have to undo almost a decade of invisible marketing in so little time. I'm going to have to rush through this intro to get you up to speed. It has been very evident that we perfectly predicted the state of the industry 2 years ago. And we talked about Epic Games' compensatory IP acquisitions for their lackluster demos. The demo that was being referenced was this Star Wars Ray Trace Reflections demo that was riddled with horrible compensatory effects like blur, film grain, chromatic aberration. On top of that, it wasn't even very performant. And we can see in this forcibly paused shot, this pathetic demo was using 2 vendor-locked technologies. Vendor-locked API reflections pushed by NVIDIA and DLSS. That's right, the demo is not even running at a native resolution. So here we can take off the vendor-locked image quality, which looks like blurry crap anyway. Now let's see how much the reflections cost. Keep in mind, they are running at a quarter rate of the native resolution. And as you can see, it's a massive 8 millisecond cost. That's so-called hardware accelerated reflections. Note the SSR kicked in, which disrupts you from getting a more accurate timing measurement for RT reflections. So let's go back to native resolution and check out the performance with the defaulted checkerboarded RT reflections. These RT reflections now basically cost the same as Half-Life Alyx and Days Gone running at more than 60 FPS on our hardware setup. You need to see that crappy performance because the rendering ratios were synchronized with this demo, which by default renders at native resolution, uses superior vendor agnostic image quality, pretty much runs 3 times faster the entire time in a much larger environment while using vendor agnostic ray traced reflections. This video will show you exactly how this project is rendered, why it has been tested improperly by most influencers, why things in this demo are actually completely unoptimized so that real-world optimized games can achieve better performance. We will discuss how the so-called drawbacks of this demo are actually shared across different hardware ray tracing implementations and raise market value for this type of ray tracing in games in order to balance out the horrendous and constantly pushed narratives and standards adopted by ignorant influencers and GPU benchmark publishings. Alright, so here's the frame we're going to analyze. This frame was chosen because it renders a lot of different things, like tons of on-screen geometry. Obviously, we've got a good shot reflections, including very important glass reflections. We have our animated object in view, which is the drone in the upper right. It has a lot of emissive materials, and we have some depth of field in the far back. So this is the GPU pipeline for that frame. And the first thing that it does is use 2 quads to clear some parts of this 4K by 4K D32 Shadow Map Atlas. As you can notice, the corner changes in the top left. Then the GPU proceeds to use hardware clears for these buffers. It clears the main scene depth, some volumetric fog resources, and the motion vector buffer. This pipeline saves performance by not clearing the base pass resources, but loses some performance by clearing these 3. The R8 goes completely unused in this pipeline, and the RGBA8 and RGBA16 buffers are completely overwritten with hardware resource copying in the next draws they're used in. Now, the next step encompasses the majority of this pipeline by rendering geometry into deferred G buffers. The albedo alpha is completely blank, but it's probably reserved for opacity values typically used by skin or plant materials. And while normals are usually stored in 32-bit formats like RGBA8 or preferably in RGB10A2, normals here are packed in an RGBA16 along with additional material tags in the alpha. The alpha normal map mostly stores information related to glass/window materials, all sharing the same value. Some curb/concrete materials use a third value, as you can see in the darker gray areas. The best way to analyze the optimization of this pass is by analyzing the individual efficiency of the pixels rendered. In this view, short wide draws render the pixels at the lowest cost, such as this draw. This is the most efficient material rendered in the base pass. This highlighted section in the albedo buffer displays what surface area this draw worked on. For clarification, most of the objects in this scene are values rendered from the previous frame. If we look at the depth buffer when this mesh was drawn, the solid objects are the meshes that rasterized before draw 12. Later draws, like this very unoptimized floor piece, fill the buffers simultaneously with current frame data. Now I want to quickly remind viewers of hardware Z testing, which is why this mesh was not rendering pixels in the corner despite the mesh boundary. The hardware is simply using the depth values provided by pre-existing draws to prevent shading behind already rendered objects. That's why clearing the depth buffer at the start of the frame is so much more important than clearing the other deferred G buffers. But moving on, I want to show why these 2 materials perform so differently, even though they render pretty much the same amount of pixels. Now, none of the materials in this demo are particularly optimized. At the very most, you want to sample 3, maybe 4 textures if it's a really complex material. It's one of the reasons why I can't stand light maps. We have videos on our channel discussing what formats these textures should be, but one of the things I'll clue you in on is that a single BC5 texture is crazy expensive compared
compared to reasonable alternatives, and many materials are using more than just a single BC5 texture. There's also other issues with how these are packed. There are some draws like 338 that have a more reasonable layout, but the majority of materials in this demo are like this, and it's not super clear if it's because it's a rushed project or if they built it this way for so-called benchmark purposes to, you know, stress test systems a bit more. But that would have been a very stupid thing to do because many people went to go test this demo to get a taste of how performant hardware agnostic RT could be. Anyways, what I want to show here is that half the base pass cost comes from these highlighted draws, and the pink surface area represents the minimal amount of pixels these draws shaded. I say minimal because this view mode won't show what these in-between draws may have shaded over. This overdraw view mode is really the best thing to determine the contribution of those, but what you need to see is that by the end of the base pass, lots of that super expensive material surface area is overwritten by later draws, indicated by blue surface area. About 21% of the most expensive materials are overwritten by later draws. There are popular, documented ways to optimize this problem, such as only rendering the depth of these objects first, because non-textured depth-only rendering will perform at least 80% faster, while providing valuable occlusion data for later draws, and then rendering these objects with their textured materials again at the end of the geometry pass, which will limit material processing to the scene's final depth surface area. The lack of a partial prepass is extremely detrimental to this demo's performance, and we'll see more examples of this later on. At the end, animated objects are rendered in the base pass with that additional motion vector RG16. Afterwards, a pixel shader is used to copy the native 24-bit hardware depth into a native 32-bit R32 float buffer. That native R32 float is then used to output an unused half-resolution 540p D24 and depth downscaled RGBA16 with the different channels containing different depth data like minimum, maximum 2x2 pixel values and other depth discontinuity information. That half-resolution RGBA16 depth discontinuity buffer is then used to create a 135p RGBA16 and 135p D24, which will be used for light culling later on. The hardware depth is used again to create a high Z followed by a decal pass, which does not use any additional buffer inputs or projection. Those two reserved 256 by 256 spaces in the shadow map have information rendered inside of them. Then the normal map RGBA16 data is copied into that uselessly cleared resource discussed earlier. Then that native R32 depth and copied normal map RGBA16 are used as additional inputs for box projection decals. The normal map RGBA16 albedo buffer and remaining RGBA8 TBR buffer are copied into identical buffers to act as inputs along with the hardware depth stencil channel and native depth R32 for a rain projection pass. Not a whole lot is changed in the normal and albedo buffer. The impact is more noticeable in the main PBR data buffer. The inputs are designed with tiling in mind along with an aerial interior exclusion texture. Then the native depth R32, normal map RGBA16, RGBA8 PBR buffer are used along with specific resources including an uncompressed PBR texture pool to software ray trace low roughness pixels. 4 different 760p RGBA16s are produced with different deferred rendering alike values. The last RGBA16 contains 16-bit precision depth and the alpha. The other buffers contain values in their alpha channels as well, which is shown here in reverse sequential order. Now you should note a few things here. This software ray tracing is done with a compute cheater. For many years, actions on the GPU were limited to the rasterization pipeline. For instance, when the GPU copied the 24-bit depth hardware to the 32-bit R32 buffer, the developers had to draw a triangle which used 3 vertex shaders, which basically cost nothing, and they had to draw that triangle over every pixel so that a pixel shader that contains the precision shifting copying logic was invoked for each pixel. This was a 1080p buffer, so about 2.7 million pixel shaders were invoked, and that's where most of the cost comes from for this draw. Compute shaders don't need triangles to shade pixels, nor do compute shaders even have to shade pixels. Compute shaders are a vendor-agnostic functionality that allows developers to use the raw parallel processing power of the GPU for any abstract computation, like updating animation skinning, particle logic, which is what some of the beginning compute shaders in Dead Space Remake do. Compute shaders were mainstreamed by the 8th console generation, which is why 7th gen focused productions like Crysis 3 don't have compute shaders in their pipeline. It is through compute shaders that will allow any shader Model 5 GPU, regardless of the vendor, to utilize its raw processing power for ray tracing. As discussed earlier, we captured the demo with very high settings enabled, which provides a unique advantage over alternative scalability options. Most ray-traced engines/games will provide native resolution tracing on high-end scalability options, but these perform terribly regardless of the engine or implementation, so they will typically provide a lower ray tracing option that will trace at a half resolution, which means it's a 3 times smaller RT buffer, which means the spatial upscaling will look extremely pixelated and require 4 different frames with little variance in motion to be temporally accumulated to a native-like RT image, which will never happen in basic gameplay. This demo renders the scalability RT buffer at a 30% lower resolution than native. This is basically equivalent to checkerboard tracing, depending on how buffer formats are handled by the engineers. But these two have great coverage that pairs well with spatial upscaling to prevent an overly pixelated output, and only requires 2 frames to resolve. It's a proper balance between performance and visual quality. Unreal Engine eventually implemented checkerboard traces in newer versions. The last thing to note here is what appears to be transparent glass materials have their interior and exterior ray traced through an interlaced pattern. We can see low roughness surfaces are traced in a uniform fashion based on input normals, but these windows have alternated lines. Every even and odd line contains the exterior and interior reflections. This is easier to understand if we use another shot in the demo. We can see in the window material the exterior RT reflection of the neon sign, but we can see the blinds behind the window. Those blinds do not exist in the deferred G buffers. Only the window mesh does. So when the software RT comes around, if the pixel is tagged with that window material flag, every other vertical line will trace the exterior reflections where the neon sign and other objects appear. Then the remaining vertical lines trace the interior to show the blinds behind the glass. The results are then temporally reconstructed to produce the final image. This is an interesting way to ensure reflections on transparent materials. A small compute shader processes some tiled lighting parameters, which are used in the next full screen triangle tile deferred shading draw, which lights the RT resources. The main RGBA16 output resolves the interlaced window materials, and the alpha contains RT depth information. The second RGBA16 output purpose is a little more unclear, but it only contains information regarding the exterior reflections and contains a luminance map and the alpha. These two outputs are used along several native resolution resolution G buffers and RT accumulation buffers or temporal reconstruction. Two of the buffers look pretty much identical and are saved for the next frame's temporal reconstruction step. Two of the outputs simply hold a temporally accumulated result with extra information stored in the alpha and are used with two native resolution G buffers to upscale the reflections to a native resolution RGBA16, with the alpha containing some type of roughness related parameter. The noisy SSDO is shaded in this draw. The RGBA8 output is passed through a depth-aware blurring pass that stores the result in the normal map RGBA16 copy buffer. This 50 microsecond stage downsamples the albedo scene color for an SSDO color bleeding resource. This will give SSDO more of an SSGI look, but I don't typically care for albedo buffer downsampling over lit scene downsampling. Two lists are cleared and are updated accordingly by these draws that render geometric light bounds against a downscaled D24 resource and uses the smallest depth discontinuity RGBA16 as input. While I probably won't end up promoting tile deferred shading for reasons that will hopefully be explained in the next video, this light culling method seems to be much faster than compute-based methods seen in other pipelines, so we'll definitely want this investigated more. Some new resources are cleared, and the first index of the R8 shadow map array has some type of sky/cloud shadow written inside the first R8 in the array. Then a geometry volume representing a light's casting range is rendered inside of the hardware depth stencil channel. Then the result is oddly refined by another geometry volume. That stencil channel is used to restrict expensive shadow map projection invocations on the R8 shadow mask mentioned before. The inputs are pretty simple. It's just the shadow map atlas, scene depth, and the shadow softening noise texture. Two more volumes imprint a new value in the stencil, which is used to prevent the corresponding shadow map pixel shading invocations in the second index of the R8 shadow mask buffer. Because this resource wasn't cleared, it is difficult to show the impact of the shadow map. A massive multi-purpose shader performs direct lighting and composites SSDO color bleeding, indirect lighting, and the RT reflection buffer in a native RGBA16 with what could potentially be scene luminance stored in the alpha channel. An RG11B10 is also outputted, but that's for materials that need screen space subsurface scattering like skin, in which these two draws would scale with in terms of cost, but because there's no skin materials, it's empty and hardly any performance is lost. Then emissive materials are rendered again, which ends up having no effect on the alpha channel. The volumetric fog is updated and managed in this portion and is composited on the lit frame in draw 1468, which induces significant changes in the alpha channel. CryEngine's fog hasn't really changed a whole lot, as indicated by a similar appearance seen in KCD2, which also had this IGN or interleaved gradient noise patterns coming from the fog. It just wasn't present in the capture we took for KCD2. It is without a doubt one of the most poor looking volumetric fog systems out there because of this noise pattern. Even though I think there's very little use cases for blue noise, it's still better to use that in fog like Half-Life Alyx and Days Gone instead of IGN. Transparents and sprite effects are rendered followed by some type of effect that uses the lowest resolution depth discontinuity buffer, rain occlusion map, and noise texture to produce this result, which is then blurred in two passes and used along several rain textures and the last frame's bloom RG11B10 to ensure raindrops are only seen in bright illuminated parts of the frame. Since the volumetric fog, many of these draws are affecting the alpha channel. A native RG11B10 has the RGBA16 scene copied into it, but the RG11B10 is never used again in this pipeline, though an exact copy of the RGBA16 scene is made in this draw and is used 9 draws later. Two half-resolution RGBA16s are created with depth of field related information along with a depth related texture that is mip-mapped in this section before being used to create near and far field blurred half-resolution versions of the scene, which are then composited on the frame in the last draw of this section. That post-DOF result is blurred down into a 270p blurred texture. That texture is then used along several G buffers to create this 64x64 HDR luminance RG16, which is then averaged all the way down to a 1x1 RG16. Then that 270p texture is recycled and blurred down continuously until it overwrites the last frame's bloom RG11B10. The purpose of these draws are unclear, as the resources they affect have nothing to do with previous or following draws. The skin screen space SSS RG11B10 outputted by the lighting stage is cleared to hold some composite effects. The half-resolution RGBA16 depth discontinuity and that post-DOF blur 270p image texture are used to create this half-resolution RGB10A2, which ends up being a completely blank image. This lookup table is created and managed in two draws and is then used in this tone mapping stage where bloom compositing also takes place. The RG8 unsigned integer used earlier is cleared for the next stage where SMA stores a 2-channel edge mask based on the tone mapped RGB10A2 scene. The hardware depth stencil channel stores what pixels were affected by the first SMA pass to restrict pixel invocations in the next SMA blending stage. It writes the blending mask in a cleared RGBA16, which is then used alongside the tone map frame to output the edge smoothed result inside another RGB10A2. The SMA2TX pass is processed next, with the RGBA16 history alpha and the output alpha containing specific temporal information. This draw transfers the anti-aliased RGBA16 output into an RGBA8 with the screen composite effects stored in the RG11B10 along with some film grain. The next step simply renders the timeframe UI. Now, there are some issues in the pipeline we'll get into, but one of the things I want to point out here is that the total sum ended up being a 13.80 millisecond cost. But the in-demo performance with the debugger software overhead stated a median performance that was 30% faster. These timing inconsistencies have only happened in the past with Jedi Survivor. With Unreal Engine games, I can usually use commands to turn off parts of the pipeline one by one to get more accurate timing, but for this analysis, my points about this demo are only enhanced. I definitely think the software ray tracing is bloating the debugger timings, but it's still going to give a good idea where processing is the heaviest in this pipeline. And none of our major conclusions rely on smaller, that is more accurate timings only gathered by real-time frame counters. So now that you have this data under your belt, take a look at one of these frames from the demo. It's the worst performing part of the benchmark, but it should confuse anyone who understands how rendering works, and ask, why is this shot performing so poorly in a demo that usually hits around 100 FPS on our setup? It's not the amount of pixels that need to be traced, as higher surface area RT frames run faster than this shot. The biggest difference is how much the rays don't really align with each other, due to more complex normals. But this frame also performs terribly because, again, the base pass has extreme issues with material data being overwritten, which would have been fixed with a partial prepass, which I ended up getting working on this demo using CryEngine commands in the user config file. As we can see, rendering the depth of these close objects is extremely fast. This prepass remains performant because it's not rendering everything in the scene, just certain objects beyond a certain size, therefore surface area threshold. When we render the retrospective objects in the base pass afterwards, expensive materials like this one, which use around 8 high-resolution, poorly compressed textures, errors. Now this material is only processed where it will be visible to the user by the end of the base pass. In other words, nothing overwrites it. Now the ordering is sort of odd since the depth prepassed object renders in the middle of the base pass, and you would really want prepassed objects to render last in the base pass. This prepass ended up providing a 7% performance improvement for the entire scene, almost an entire millisecond gain. And remember, we only have 16 milliseconds to work with if we want to hit 60 FPS in the worst case scenario. The next issue is anti-aliasing. Now the temporal component was pretty conservative in comparison with more abuse pipelines, and that's why the fog noise is still present in the image. The more competent the TAA, the less it can be abused, but you can see clearly it's blurring out some detail because it's averaging out so many pass frames in order to compensate because the standalone SMAA isn't working properly, as we can see in its standalone image. It's not smoothing basic edges. It's an issue we addressed a lot in our CryEngine revisit when we reviewed the deferred MSA implementation in Crysis 3. Now another thing I want to mention is how pixelated the very high performance RT tracing looks when the camera isn't moving. There are two different methods we can combine to resolve this issue. We can use blue noise sampling. Our Dead Space remake analysis discussed this in great detail. Here it works great in Jedi Survivor, which doesn't even use specular motion vectors, which we'll eventually discuss in another video. And Unreal, or at least 5.7, does have a superior reconstruction method for checkerboarded reflection by jittering the reflections and utilizing a semi-anti-aliasing independent denoiser. I say semi-independent on TAA because it officially relies on incompetent TAA because Epic pushes developers to render traces below that checkerboarded resolution, that quarter pixel count we mentioned earlier. Lumen reflections also support higher roughness reflections through blue noise scattered sampling, whereas this demo uses Q maps when lighting the reflections and rasterized geometry. These comparisons confirm an initial conclusion when analyzing Callisto Protocol that butchered rasterization, in this case bad Q maps, are more destructive to realism than no Q maps. Here we can see how ridiculously unoptimized the SSR is. There's no good reason for SSR to be surpassing the cost of ray tracing like it does here. The half resolution SSR shown here is still completely unoptimized. We know this for sure because this channel has measured the performance of superior implementations in past videos, as seen in the Phantom Pain, Frostbite titles, and even Crysis 3. There are so many aspects in which we can optimize compute shader ray tracing performance using the same cutbacks hardware ray tracing is using today. That is, unless you're using something like NVIDIA's fake path tracing. We have barely scratched the surface of what a scam hardware ray tracing is in this video, which is why we're going to revisit this topic in the future. But for now, you need to share this content on every platform possible because more people need to remember what vendor agnostic graphics are capable of. Post it in as many Discord servers and subreddits as possible. If you see it already posted in a community, post it again because you will need to overwhelm moderators that defend anti-consumer tech cultures. NVIDIA's marketing bots are relentless, so we need to match NVIDIA's aggression. You also need to demand GPU reviewers to stop making hardware ray tracing comparisons because they feed that anti-consumer culture just as they've been feeding and blowing up the upscaling culture. They should be testing benchmarks like this, that is with settings mentioned in the pinned comment. Make sure to subscribe to raise the market value for vendor agnostic optimization, and make sure to consider joining our Patreon because we are here to dominate in content creation and have that fund our development endeavors. But we can't produce videos as fast as the most successful content creators because this content requires such meticulous testing to back conclusions. If you join now, you'll be supporting one of our most massive projects yet, a project that is going to have profound effects on the industry. And what you're seeing on screen is the basic skeleton of that video. Make sure to keep your eyes peeled because that video will release with temporarily free materials to download before becoming Patreon exclusive content. So share it like crazy, hype people up for its release, and thank you for watching this video.
It's crazy, but there was a moment in tech history that people checked their banking account to find money that didn't exist. Not a scam, not a hack, just a good old-fashioned bug. You'd probably assume someone got fired. But this wasn't just one bug, it was a class of bug, and some of the biggest financial institutions were affected by it. To tell my story, I need to go back to the early 2000s. For those of you who are too young to remember, I will set the scene with Motorola flip phones, iPods, Pokemon cards, and Britney and Justin matching denim out. Now, online payments are just starting to kick off, and companies like PayPal are growing super fast, and banks are digitalizing to try to keep up and not get behind. Essentially, startups are building financial and equity. And when you're moving fast, you naturally make trade-offs. Because handling money in software is actually way harder than it sounds. You think it's just numbers. You add a few dollars together, subtract some dollars, done. But money has rules. You can't lose a cent, you can't create a cent, and you definitely can't be almost correct. But here's the thing starting to happen. Small discrepancies starting to be. And I'm not talking dollars, I'm not even talking cents, I'm talking minuscule fractions of tiny rounding errors that no one notices at first. Instead, of course they do. So let's imagine we're going to work at a big bank, and our big bank processes millions of transactions every single day. Now, let's say each of these million transactions has a tiny minuscule rounding error. Let's say 0.00000001. Or tiny, right? Individually meaningless. But at scale, it starts to accumulate. Now, here's where it gets messy. Some systems would round up, others would round down, and sometimes they wouldn't round out. So money would start to, let's call it risk, and reports from many different platforms started coming about balances not quite adding up. By this, I mean transactions that left behind microscopic residues and accounts that gain or lost time. And then people start to notice that if you trigger the right sequence of action, you could amplify this and to your benefit. I'm not sure if this is called hacking, as essentially you are hacking or trying to enter the system. You're just using something like this to your sneaky benefit. Over and over again. In some early digital payment flows, including systems similar to what PayPal and banks were experimenting with, users found ways to split transactions, recombine them, trigger conversions, and then reverse. And each step introduced a tiny rounding increase. And those inconsistencies, well, they stack. Now, to be clear, this didn't make everyone a millionaire overnight, especially because these transactions were minuscule. But there were cases where people exploited random behaviors to generate real money from nothing. And of course, that was the problem. Financial systems were on quickly because once you scale this across millions of users, it becomes a serious issue. Major institutions from traditional banks to companies like Visa and MasterCard had to rethink how they handled numbers entirely and get rid of the assumption that computers are good with numbers. Don't get me wrong, they can be incredible. But no, wait, let me show you something by simulating some numbers. A balance. So here we have a balance. We start off with a balance being 0, and then we add 0.1, then we add 0.2 to that balance, and you'd expect 0.3, right? But you get 0.3000004. Now, imagine a system that checked if a balance deeply equals 0.3, console log correct balance. Then that condition would fail. In fact, it's the same for the in most programming languages. Instead, you get it. Here's why. Computers don't store numbers in base 10 like we do. They use binary. Base 2. For those of you who don't know, base 10 means you have a digit. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Each position is a power of. So this number 3, 4, 5 actually means base 2 means you only have 2 digits. 0 and 1. Each position is a power of 2. So this number 101 actually means 5 in base. And some decimal numbers like 0.1 or 0.2 can't be represented exactly in binary. So instead of storing exactly 0.1, the computer stores the closest possible approximation. Same with 0.2. And when you add those approximations together, you don't get exactly 0.3. You get something like the opposite. Most of the time, it doesn't matter. In financial systems, where millions of operations happen every second, that tiny difference becomes real money. This is why modern systems don't use floating point numbers. Currently, they use integers. Instead of storing $10.23, they store 1,023. No decimals, no rounding error, no drift. So because of that one bug, the one that made balances holy shit, an entire industry was. And I had to rethink how money works in code. And it's still relevant today. Every time you see a price online, every time you make a payment, an entire layer of engineering is making sure that 0.1 plus 0.2 actually equals 0.3. Because if it doesn't, someone somewhere is getting it. And that's the bug that almost broke
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newsway. Yesterday, Epic had their Unreal Engine presentation. They went over the future for the engine as well as a bunch of different upgrades, including one that they specifically pointed out or the Switch 2. And we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we already talking about the situation around Bungie and some of the cuts that are now being expected here imminently, and they can only really describe this point as just disastrous. And we had a bit of a nostalgia hit yesterday with an announcement for a couple of different ports that will be finding their way over to PlayStation and got people very, very excited online. We'll go over all that and more, guys. If you enjoyed these videos, you should hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if you're here to the small
channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're starting today with Capcom at Games on. It's over the list of titles that you can expect to play. And there's one particular okay, I see footage for this, you hands on time with it. Because it's over on Capcom's social media packaging paperbacks for Games on 26. These are waiting for you. Hold on, and so when you're out there, hold on, you check out this list. It was right to Resident Evil 6. Maybe right there. Now, Games on 26, 26, 26, 26, hold on. Okay, so Sand A0, I'm showing you footage out there. Around a couple games, I think wait, obviously Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, the expansion of the games, of course, there's different things that characters are coming. I just make it right. It's a place of interest they have for the franchise. So if you want to build up to it, they have the point of sharing some sort of application. So there's a trailer for Spider-Man brand new game, and the also made a watch trailer like holding there and starting new games. I'm sure that means pretty impressive for the end of the movie. But it ties into a video game. So decided to put a on the PlayStation account. At the end, there's a new super game and PC version. Spider-Man 2 is inspired by Spider-Man brand. Available in July 28th. We're seeing the movie itself in theaters and July 6th. So that is super and it's across promotion. The other game also going to which movies expected to take opening weekend. And there's one more thing for marketing. So as they talked previously, when you're marketing their game vision and the pictures, movie vision, and Sony portion of the Spider-Man movie. So this all makes sense. Obviously, you can check out Spider-Man 2 on PS5 or PC. This is the price here of PS5. This is the Sand GX Pro 50 and there's one terabyte over 8 terabytes. And 40 gigabytes of the 8 terabyte model is $3,000. But it's more down. There is $3,700. Yeah, I don't think that actually the 1 terabyte is more recent. $300 worth of 4 $5. This is more high end and as long as you put your PS5 for there's not anything but 2 above. You can be 1 terabyte and gaming which is I figured by now with $100 like this. Because the $5 is more expensive like this. Down it was possible to around $100 more times for $8 $9. And the price in some cases for one of these is like $4 which yes, which is for market right now. Because let's say there's a story and their engine presentation happens. Like, of course, 2 hours or so, and during this time they discuss Unreal Engine 5 and future Unreal Engine 6, and then the far future where it seems things should go because AAA right now development budget's whole thing. Sales on Steam, background based on the script. And solution no kind of sort. And I go that as everything is all day. Everything here they show up. And of course, we develop completely Unreal Engine. A lot of things from this, but some of the high level points that are interesting from this, right? And we see some presentation that are highly and so Unreal Engine 5 is available right now. And there's everything about the presentation. They were focusing more on performance over purity. So Unreal Engine 5 they also went forward to Unreal Engine 6 and early 6 like 2027-ish they will function like a game mode. And so long so we'll stick there like they're only so 12 months after early access. So we're probably thinking 2028 maybe for the full release. We're Unreal Engine 6 they work well with these console releases and everything PS6 and Xbox Max will be around in 2027 28 seconds. That's how we're going with the point. What is a lower cost global nation. They say twice as fast as we call it. It means that games are global nation for services. Well, in terms of 2, yes, also support on PC and this is the thing. We're talking about in terms of features and graphical ability, also full hardware. Maybe it's starting to just like basic people see Unreal Engine global. Others are quite good. But also many times depending on the optimization of the developer or the Unreal Engine in general. So I like them talking about how they're trying to make it later. So it's getting some stuff working at 60 FPS. Now, virtual what they call extra that even the some of the counterpart today is like 30 FPS on the Switch, whereas it's 60 FPS on the PS5 with the Xbox Series X. So I like the direction here where they start games that have no space. Like, them to have the ability to play games sitting right around 60 FPS or 50 FPS with the VR display on the Switch camera. They talk about Unreal Engine 6, right? And it seems like they have developers that work with featuring entirely new game framework and see right first the foundation that future programming is a next generation programming first master system game global stage works and actually quick practice and modern game framework that will give you true value for game experience easily and sharing their proper between games. And it's like right out here this is the game to be one collect. So you can have access and like you buy something one game works in which you use your fees for that you solve really and the idea being if you go for Unreal Engine 6 you use games like they share you use multiple platforms easily or you can use it in Fortnite. I'm not getting how Fortnite is like wow so we Unreal Engine is a long time. Now feel like it's like right down. That's the feeling that right now later since AI is important Unreal Engine 6 and Unreal Engine 5 later but certainly ground level 6 like we see and Fortnite share tools like play simple people that's maintaining creative big progress going into social media and those and developers mismatch that's the edge we are about custom integration also open Unreal Engine 6 MCP. They should show there we have all the side with the AI and take for yourself your like they will work to see that's no hope. Generally I think when it comes to art like we see games as it's almost work as it's call it it's like accelerating with what you can share. But I will say the Unreal Engine is just my running that what about to experience on PC or the consoles not Unreal Engine logo consoles especially into Unreal Engine 6. So I will say 20% most likely Sony and Bungie and I'm racing for the new deadline of Sony is this time massive fact that Bungie because it's small groups of numbers and what the Sony has already been and 14 LG it sounds like they're going to be like a significant portion of Bungie. This is the one is news from fresh release so we don't have to share it that Bungie expect massively else something on the library based on at least 50% Bungie staff to be that way Bungie I think like entire podcast using at the end so you have neither that time after I estimate the number of staff to be so in the second estimation but 50% that's like 400 developers for staff Bungie being like that was going to be based on what podcast said in his video recently even though there's a massive surge in Destiny 2 and their conversation there's not players of the final they have significantly higher than American they will continue I didn't move on it doesn't seem like right now so any interest in Bungie pursuing Destiny 3 the current structure is my confidence they'll get done and find they say so that's like game like those 2 years and that's just like right now the game will allow massive platform life services to become because it's 2 PS4 and Xbox One right I think they're getting made for the generation Destiny 3 probably be made for PlayStation 6 Xbox and see like that would be a very complex massive undertaking to develop it's probably similar to the shop order doesn't even have to happen they are so all they're several other projects and then like then already hired again so it's crazy that Bungie at one point they're $1,200 and now they're down to like 400 as it's being really all the time it's just it was that versus it was hindsight and now they're saying they're trying to figure out some way to get to the heights where Destiny 2 was they walk away from it and talk about last one passes you mentioned how behind the scenes it looked like Black Ops 1 Black Ops 2 appearing on Sony server with PlayStation 5 it was weird because you have to get the version of the game it's like that and it was being updated and there was multiple zombies but they already porting stuff to the PlayStation but you can see it's like there's Black Ops 3 with PlayStation 5 first person it's straight that's not like that's the thing that feels like the year really follow they both include campaign multiplayer and zombies they PS5 yes why is PlayStation I do think PS4 now but they developers PS4 over PS6 was still Black Ops 1 2 PS4 for a few years in the PS5 almost every campaign multiplayer all included what's wrong with that yeah Xbox version is compatible what is legitimately version having bust up and cheers it's not fun experience necessarily because most likely you don't run people playing school it's just like people there are true walls flying over the place and kill the overall game should be Xbox 65 from big and so and throws out window it's not like you don't shoot that and as soon as something is built as a threat but nice root servers that were laying on what's really exploiting music and people wondering what is the version it's still odd to see just the PlayStation when they release it that's just fun and very self versus like one I really zombies online doing like the way that is also letting you fun direction like I do this old school Call of Duty maybe something so you know about the interest because it's or you feel like it's so fun like it's so much 82 on PlayStation 5 those two almost the exact same number of reviews like you look through your review and most people are saying it's like tales of remarkable action and story like storytelling where time travel and engaging combat into an unforgettable journey Brazil and I think adventures of the next chapter influence that you use combat exploration and a good story that makes every hour worthwhile and that's like nice they're experience nestled in the 5 game with world history becomes your voice flying they're flying it's going so they get their agent it's essentially it's all the time during the following day adventure route agents like great and fast you can have you play and you play and so also full out and old school traditional always for that's why I think that's all maybe so that's what we're HTTP style I think serves well with the same based on the nostalgia trying to into the modern battle effects on display I think I'm right also question maybe other region you can see that here in the whole rest of the conventions and 40% ASAP 40% stay later than 40% so we're happy interested in right now especially there's a lot of about this you can here's a couple games these are don't know if there's a and you're probably also like the year when Black Friday started when you're when shop it for 25 days and switching key cards so it's also okay so that's the next thing is don't wait pick up cheaper right what do you check out this I don't know anything else really going to see there which combination is from 56 and it's free of each use the filter like if I just block filter I have some complicated in the future because as we talked about 6 and
is that my computer what something disconnected I have no idea what it was what was it what had just disconnected I don't get it what the fuck what was it The USB log view doesn't say anything. Hey. What the fuck? So I have no idea what it was. No idea what it was. Jeez.
As we talked about, Unreal Engine 6 has got AI generated completely. Unreal Engine 5, or even Unreal Engine 6 is every game that I guess we played. I guess we played last year. It's the disclosure thing. And it always the scene next to people realize about 1,500 games have AI disclosure check. So once you start checking out that, you start checking out remove games that use AI to be made. You're probably signed up somebody to remove 89 games and left like so I'm like, I think you guys are a lot of games that you're probably playing soon. Or probably AI in some way. You'll find out years later at a GC report. Yes, you'll find out at the time, and then you have to sit there like, man, let's go. Use it. Man, let's go. That's a good point on that. So I think like 5 or 6 years, certainly after maturation, I think like AI can use great games. These guys are open to it. Please don't listen to your video. This is all over the 5 years. This is just more about how accurate it is towards the end of the year, September, October, and November, moving for releases. I didn't video breaking down into it. I know that Claude is a big name right now. Code and everything. I feel like super design skill. That's like a word. I feel like this skill probably going to be a thing. But I think design with accessing our front end design skill. Dude, I promise you, what comes out of that, I can smell 100 miles away. It just has this particular style that applies. That I can just be like, yeah, Claude did that. Is it relatively nice? Sure, but it's like even more. I can smell it faster than I used to be able to smell Bootstrap. You cannot launch a big time app right now and have it look exactly like that. It's not going to stand out. It's not going to say what it needs to say. It's going to say, I don't know, let me do this. I think you need skilled, talented people to make unique things. I mean, in a way, web design is art and art.
The meta situation is actually somehow worse. For those that don't know anything about Meta, Facebook, or the Instagram situation, let me just give you a quick speed run of its history. Facebook went super hard in VR, then found out VR is not actually where it's at. It's all about AI. Then decided it's going to fire roughly 10% of its company or 8,000 employees and focus super hard on AI. And part of that focusing super hard on AI is going to record everybody's desktop and everything you do and then feed that to the AI. Not only that, it's going to create a new organization, apply AI, where it's going to put approximately 10% of the company into it. We're going to help train and make the next generation of AI. Of course, during all this, Zuckerberg on a phone call called everybody super highly intelligent, the most high IQ people in the valley. And then after saying all that, said that the reason why they're recording your desktop, I'm not telling you why, is because it's for your own best interest.
Not strategically in your interest for us to communicate everything like in all detail that we normally would on this.
But now the internals are coming out. Employees are coming forward and speaking about what's actually going on inside of Facebook. It does not look good. It does not look good at all. In fact, this is somehow the least bad thing coming out of Facebook, which is they just shifted JSON. That's not even parsable to production. The golden age of slots has arrived, and it's happening right now live at Facebook. But the internal employee morale is even worse than this. Like imagine working at a place where they're like, you ain't got time to set up CI/CD pipeline, make sure JSON parses. That's where we're at. But first, I'd like to say a quick thank you to the sponsor. We're going to look at this by looking at what the employees are saying. I am going to both laugh at the situation and make fun of the employer too for this because they describe things rather ridiculously. But then we're going to look at how the company is talking about it, how the management is talking about it, which is also somehow super ridiculous. And it's even more nuts than how the employees look at it. Now, a lot of this information comes from the lawyer article. You gotta go check it out. It's linked in the description. But it starts off with the title of Tell him he's a piece of shit. Meta's new AI unit is a total mess. Yes, it is absolutely a total mess. So now that little quote, that little line comes from actually a live town hall in which thousands of employees were all in a single meeting video call with some presenters going over some sort of information. Someone just joins, flips on a mic, goes hot mic, and just lets out a 4-letter rant for the ages, finishing up with, hey, you know the Meta AI executives, go tell him he's a piece of shit. Imagine being in that call because the presenters, even says one of the presenters covered their faces with their hands. According to a witness, of course, you know why they're covering their faces. You can't be showing all the people like laughing at some profanity ways. AI rants, especially when you're 1%. You just cover your face, pretend it doesn't happen. So what's happening is since April, a new org has been formed in which about 6,500 employees have joined. Now they have joined in waves and it's described as this. The organization has grown in batches since early April. It's crazy to watch people experience the shock of it as each wave comes in. So this organization is not necessarily known for being fantastic. So what's actually happening is that they're taking all of their talented engineers, right, these really top talented, the best, most intelligent engineers that are possible at Facebook, and they're assembling them into a team. And they're given about 2 tasks per week to finish. And these tasks they involve generating complex software coding problems to help AI scientists better train and evaluate the performance of the latest frontier models. Meaning they're not actually solving or building anything real. They're coming up with toy examples, toy coding problems, and actually like using their collective power of thousands of engineers to create the ideal coding examples to train the AI. So that means that employees not only are getting their screens recorded, which by the way, just in case you're wondering, the screen recording company has scaled the program back slightly, allowing employees to plot data collection for up to 30 minutes and request specific exemptions. So just in case you want to do a little bit of Twitter following or whatever, it goes on for 30 minutes on an employee a laptop that I do not care to want to know. They're just asking for some exemptions. And Facebook has granted it. With Facebook now recording desktop, they have thousands of people handcrafting curated beautiful coding challenges to make the greatest coding robot of all time. They are literally hiring and making it explicit. They're trying to figure out a way to replace employees. All these employees work on. They're actually trying their darndest. But how do the engineers feel about this? Well, the engineers select for you to have no choice to join or leave the company. That's right. So if you are an engineer and you are working on say some social media feature for the billions of users of WhatsApp, Instagram, or Facebook, they say, hey, by the way, you're on the new program. And if you say, I want to be on the new program, leave the company. It's an unusual requirement for highly valued technical employees in Silicon Valley. That's led some members of the applied AI to describe themselves as draftees. Yes, the employees are actually compared to like this is their I actually can't even say that. It's so ridiculous. Like, they're actually being forced into this thing or being fired and they're calling themselves draftees. It is absolute cinema over there. This of course like the one employee saying it's literally the gulag. You have zero purpose in life all of a sudden. You barely interact with anyone. You just have these tasks every week. I do it. That does sound awful. It does not sound like some kind of fulfilling job where you're just simply trying to develop whatever the coding challenges that you have to develop and you're just kind of answering to the same amorphous blob of AI scientists in which you have no light into, you have no real meaning or impact to your job. You have no idea if you're affecting anybody or nobody, and you actually don't even know if you're training or replacing their knowledge. I get it. That would not be that right. I would probably find myself pretty unhappy and probably applying around some different jobs. But to describe it as a gulag, the gulag, just in case anybody's wondering, is best known for random meetings, brutalized torture, high amounts of starvation, absolute exposure to the elements, and lots of diseases and public defecation. Like, it is, I hate to break it to you, but your sushi lunches and like not meaningful work, it's just not the same as a gulag. Almost all employees seem unhappy. Most people find their work soul crushing for employees. Right, I can't actually make fun of the employees anymore. Like, I do understand that boring work can be really, really frustrating. I do remember sitting in my car and actually being like, God, help me have the patience to do the work at my job because I too work at a soul crushing company for quite some time. Like, in some sense, I do get that feeling, but it does seem a little overwhelming. How is management responding to all this? During a meeting this week to all employees at Instagram, the Chief Product Officer Chris Cox addressed the difficult and brutal environment created by the insanity of this company in the past few months. According to recording by Cox, applauded the Instagram employees for launching features and serving around 2 billion users in a way compared to running a marathon in the middle of a hailstorm and then like your teammates get replaced and then we're recording you. I mean, hey, at least he's somewhat honest about the situation. But then you know what he said right afterwards? He gives a fantastic summary of AI. Cox said that he needed to reckon with how he and other leaders could get in touch with the company again and not be over-earnest about the power of AI. It is your God, nor is the devil. It's nowhere near as good as you think it is, and it's nowhere near as bad as you think it is, and it changes every day, and it doesn't know what day of the week it is. Hey, not back, Chris Cox. Let's say, what is the company doing? Now, this is, I think, the largest failure of this entire situation. Okay, listen to this. Zuckerberg reiterated a vow not to carry out additional mass layoffs this year. Okay. So he's letting you know about 6 months of peace. By the way, just saying it that way is so nuts. Like, he's saying it, we're gonna probably lay off more people, just not right now. He introduced a plan to limit the number of employees per manager, which some teams such as Applied AI had deliberately ballooned to a ratio of 50 to 1. That number makes no sense. Like, Jensen Huang doesn't even have that many, and he's considered the most unusual CEO of a company of all time. Like, how does this even happen on a team? Like, how do you even organize or do anything with 50 direct reports? So the big plan, of course, is more money for team events, which of course everybody knows team events is really what makes you happy. You know, like nothing better than spending a little extra time at the office and getting something bougie out of it, right? Like that's what makes you a good employee. And the other one, of course, is a hackathon designed to bring the company together again. Now, let's not, we don't think we have to think too hard about this one, okay? I think we can both see the problem with this. Now, imagine for a second, you're at a company in which you've been drafted into a new organization. You're doing menial work you're not happy about. You're doing a lot of tasks you feel like you have no insight into it. A bunch of your co-employees all been fired. So what does management do? Hey, everybody, let's recreate Navy SEALs Hell Week, except instead of trouncing through the ocean sand, we are instead going to be hacking on the product you already worked on non-stop for a week. We're going to hackathon, and then everybody's going to get pizza and an award at the end of it. How do you not see that that's not going to be a good idea? Okay, like I have no Nostradamus, but hackathons are great when people feel burnt out. Okay, this is not a way to win the employees. Anyways, I just thought this was so funny because we're watching in real time one of the largest companies on earth slowly imploding on itself. Now, will it actually implode on itself? I don't know. Right now, it's set on pace to exceed Google for ad revenue. It is by all accounts absolutely just making hand over fist money. So will it actually implode? I don't know. But will it lose a lot of the top tier talent? Likely. And now will that lead it into such a technical disaster that it has no other choice but people leaving the platform for somewhere else? But that is actually a real situation. Again, hundreds of thousands of down tech reports. Facebook absolutely crashed, and JSON lexical errors being brought to the front end, letting you know that JSON cannot be parsed. This cannot be a coincidence. Okay, this cannot be a coincidence. Deep employee morale hits, plus increasing instability, plus increasingly weird management decisions, all are going to come together just to create some of the worst products on earth. I just want to talk about this. It's just shocking to see. You know, somebody who worked in the valley, Facebook at one time considered a very prestigious place to work, right? The best engineers have to work there. Okay, you were going to get treated the best, you're going to get paid the most, and you're going to work on some of the right places and the hardest problems you work on. right? It was supposed to be a great place to go and work super hard. It's like a disaster. It's like every single month the reporting gets worse and worse coming out of it. It's crazy to see these things happen to companies in which used to be the tippity top. All right, anywho, hey, the name is the Prime Chin. Okay, hey, hi, it's nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. Are you doing well? Like, what's going on with you? You know, you come here. Oh no, you guys, what are you guys doing? I'm gonna get a haircut. You know, yeah, I'm gonna get a haircut. It's honestly, it's just too big. Like, look at this. Like 50% of my head size is devoted to hair. I think I just gotta do something about it. You know? Oh, yeah.
The drooling cat picture is everywhere. It effectively works as an incredibly accurate representation of a very specific state of mind. Some days one feels as if they only have a couple of brain cells firing at any given moment, and the drooling cat is the visual embodiment of that. It's difficult to tell exactly who was responsible for creating it, but it's been doing the rounds through 2026 to the point that it's so popular that it seems impossible to avoid right now. So if you do have a
saw the image for the
I mean, the idea is simple enough. Showing a cute cat looking stupid has been an incredibly common reaction image format for years now. So to see one with a little bit of cartoonish flair on the drool makes sense. Anyway, you look at it, these memes are simply the continuation of the tradition of posting cats on the internet, a practice that goes back to 1998 with the Geeko Cat ASCII art, if you're looking at internet memes, or before internet memes with Harry Pointer in the 1870s, who took pictures of his own cats in funny poses and added captions to them. Humans just seem to really, really like these animals, and our companionship with them over the years has perhaps allowed us to project a bit of humanity onto them. Meme culture effectively relies on a sort of suspense of disbelief to work here. Logically, you wouldn't see a small animal and find it very relatable, but put it in a position where it looks like it's doing something humans do, and suddenly it becomes anthropomorphized. It is argued that the want to anthropomorphize animals comes from an innate need to form social connections, as seeing the other as like oneself, even if it is entirely different, is simply an evolutionary boon. The drooling cat is a part of this ecosystem, and it achieves its one purpose extremely effectively, to illustrate a moment when a person loses all cognitive function. Essentially, the drooling cat photos have managed to swamp the internet due to their ability to ride the coattails of legends before them, such as Geeko Cat, Lolcats, or even Harry Pointer's photographs, as it turns out the human ability to see themselves in animals is a long-running evolutionary social trait. What meme would you guys like me to give a lesson in next? Let me know in the comments below.
And remember, like and subscribe. Or else.
Your first space in life is your home. Your second is your work or your school. And your third is where you engage socially. The third and latter of these spaces are beginning to disappear due to economic pressure, corporatization, and a changing world. Many people have called the digital world and gaming a fulfillment of this need, which would make by extension our gaming setup the physical manifestation of this space. But I don't think this is the full picture. The video you are about to watch is all about the gaming setups that we spend our lives in. I interviewed my friends in Discord community and asked them all about the space that they have created to be their window into the digital world. And you'll see why these setups are not just a place to play video games.
My PC setup is literally just my gaming laptop. I've got a mouse, I've got plugged in, typically use a PS5 controller, pretty chill. Also have a Wii, Switch, and PS5. My dad would like do sporty stuff, and then we play games, but I need some more time to play. He set me up with this table, like back and forth, and we play Minecraft there. I was friends from like England, or Canada.
I say right now, this is my forever setup. It's taken a while to get here. I've had to bring crappy desks. I've had to bring crappy hardware and peripherals, but I'm here and I'm super happy, super comfortable with this. I would change a lot.
Each and every one of us has a unique setup. Usually the parts of the pieces acquired over time. It grows and adapts to the needs of each user. It's also interesting to see each person's non-negotiables.
So the cat was like on there.
My dog, my son's out in the garage of our apartment. KK likes to be out in the garage. He's laying down next to me right now. It's really nice to have him next to me. It's always good to pick up and you can say, don't talk about yourself, but I just right next to me just for a reason, you know.
My upstairs is actually stable. I'm either in the chair or I'm on the couch. Usually I find sitting on the couch. I don't focus.
These tables all combine create space to enjoy the internet, hang out with friends, and play video games. Returning back to what I mentioned at the beginning, a social framework of three spaces. Your third space is where you get a break from your work and your home. It's a place to fill social and cultural needs you have. Samuel J. Abrams asserts that social capital does not regenerate itself. It is produced in spaces where people encounter one another for regularity and low stakes. This is exactly what gaming space can be.
I picked up the laptop, I wanted something else to play games on and catch up. The other I picked up the PS5, so I wanted to play some PlayStation exclusives. Also our apartment's pretty small, and there's good natural lighting in our living room, so it's nice to get good lighting in here as well. And the upstairs just sit here, relax and play my laptop. I also got a laptop to my TV. I like to have options. Really good. You know, today I want to go back to me. Or today I'm feeling God of War, Helldivers, or something like that. So having all of that allows me to freedom to be able to decide what I want to use.
Through your efforts, you can make yourself exactly the place you need to regain energy and connect with society. My current setup has a click mouse, click keyboard, to Steam Deck, so I can connect with this medium my way.
Maybe set up like monitors again. I realized I could hook on my laptop and play games like that. And then for graduation I got money, so I bought myself my PC and I've been playing there every night.
The gaming setup is the third space that adapts to the way you live, exactly what you need and what you want. But in a digital age, alignment in the third space, the second space is beginning to blur. You can also work for your setup.
I'm illustrator by trade. I've been doing freelance for a while. Got to the point where I'm doing professional stuff. I'm like, I get nice stuff. I like to have screen, I like the color profile, I like the resolution of what I'm drawing.
In college, I had one monitor setup, either a MacBook or a gaming laptop, depending on the task at hand. It was just this tiny desk, and it gives me claustrophobia just thinking about it. But now I graduated and moved on. I got a second monitor, a bigger desk, a shelf for all my project storage and accessories. This Mac is my tool of choice for VFX, editing, and daily office work. All of these are necessary because I spend more time working while using my setup than I do gaming. But that should be obvious when I have a Mac.
Now I use it on YouTube videos, it makes Discord calls, video calls, recording stuff, everything. It's seamless. It feels like a part of the desk.
Your first space is your home, a shelter and comfort, a place to retreat to after the other two spaces have lost their usefulness. But a home becomes more than a place when you make it yours. And I can't think of a quicker way to make something yours than to decorate it.
I don't feel stressed when I sit down and have to literally be the haven for like everything I do. I love having like my own setup, my own area. I can't have clutter. When a tablet is put back and everything's in its place, I feel a lot better. But I want a million Funko Pops.
Every picture I get just gonna cash. 100 games, simple. I love Funko Pops, I Lego, I like plushies. I just help fit the vibe. It's like just a lot of different interests. 32 regular sized base mones and 2 large ones. More cat stuff on the side, like cat level.
Okay, you like cats.
Actually, dogs more. I just got just awesome. And then once I started getting smaller cats, I was like, you know what? I think you can get cats. Like 10 bucks, just like $300 cat plushies at least.
That video of Samus Aran from Metroid Dread. I think Samus is a great example of getting better through progression and overcoming odds. And then this is my favorite painter of all time. Much for the same reason.
When you spend enough time with it, your setup will begin to become a home to you. A home you built from the ground up.
I feel at home in my own space, making my own decisions, making what I want to make. And I lose that feeling if I'm not at my setup. If I have the option, I'll always work at my setup. I'll always game myself, you know, just like to have a set, consistent place. It represents consistency, it represents autonomy, it represents safety for me. So when I'm doing my love, I need to do it in my spots that I've curated.
I have an Ethernet running to my living room PC that allows me to stream to my Mac with no latency and gain my heart's content. My Steam Deck is the part of my setup, allowing me to take with me wherever I go. If it's small enough gaming, I like to schedule. My non-negotiable is my glorious model. I got this back in 2020 playing Wars with my friends. It's by possibly the greatest mouse I have ever used. People will always make fun of me for being a Mac user in the world of gaming, but I don't really care because it's a mirror than what I need. It makes me happy to have a place that's comfortable and gives me everything I need. My setup is taking work, sacrifice, and fine-tuning, just like everyone else's. Our setups have pieces from our past, but also our future. Through our stages of life and our hobbies, we can see them grow and adapt in a world where these spaces are disappearing. This is your window into a vast ocean of experience, art, and social connection. But I don't think our setups are necessarily a third space anymore. They aren't even a first or second. They're becoming all three. I can buy my groceries, work 9 to 5, connect with my family, watch movies, hang out with my friends, enjoy art, play video games, get happy, get mad, get sad, all without leaving this chair. It's as though we're becoming digital creatures trapped in a physical world. And these three spaces all exist in the exact same setup. So of course you want this place to be fine-tuned. Of course you want it to be comfortable. And you want it to be perfect because it's not your access point to engage with reality. It is reality.
Volume.
You know, like AI videos, they've gotten better. Like, still, if you know what you're looking for, and often you can tell right away. Like, even within the first 2 frames, you can just tell this is AI generated. People still fall for it. I'm like so constantly, it's upsetting. It is so upsetting constantly people fall for that shit. Look at this. This person gets 6,000 likes on a shit tweet, and the shit tweet says this in 3 words. A new era of PC. Like, minimally 5 words. And if you think PC is 2 words, that's 6 words. Like, you're somehow still using ChatGPT 3.5. Like, I hate you. I actually hate you.
We're all pretty used to trends coming in cycles at this point. It's not news necessarily. Fashion trends from the 90s and the 2000s are back, and I feel like I'm reliving my teenage years. But one of the trends that has come back around that I'm very curious about is wired headphones. Because a lot of people are ditching modern technology to go back to these classic wired buds. Like, I have these, but these aren't what are becoming popular weirdly. And for some reasons that I will get into later, it seems to be very specifically the Apple wired headphones that we see all over the place. So we have lots of celebrities, fashion moguls, and influencers wearing their headphones now. And this is a symbolic connection that is projecting a certain kind of lifestyle that we all wish we could manifest more nowadays, which is the offline life, right? We're going analog, baby. The internet's crazy. We're all exhausted from being online. So what's the coolest thing that we can do today? Is be offline. Now, there are some very practical aspects to explain the wired headphone resurgence. It's way more affordable. It works better in a lot of cases than Bluetooth headphones, and it might sound better to the audiophile community. But the true reason why it is so popular today is because it gives the wearer a sort of implied offline aura, right?
We did it, Joe.
Wearing wired headphones says, I'm not concerned with the latest technology. I don't even know what's going on online. You know, I'm just
plugged in. It shows people that you only participate with the digital world because you have to, not because you're addicted to doom scrolling TikTok or care what other people think about you or whatever, right? Anyway, So when Lou, Matthew, and I started talking about this trend, we were kind of skeptical, I would say, as to whether or not this was anything truly noteworthy. But as we looked into it, the list of celebrities that have been seen talking about or wearing these wired headphones is kind of surprising. And then the real clincher was, we started to notice them in the real world. And I challenge you, the next time you go outside, if you do that, look around, and you will be surprised, I think, to find that, like, not an insignificant percentage of the people in the real world have wired headphones in. Lou actually sent us this text right after we started talking about it. She was like, no, wait guys, I think we might actually be on something. Because it is one thing to see a bunch of viral videos online about a product that's having a moment or whatever, to see a Google trend chart that happens to confirm your suspicion. But when you start seeing a real pattern emerge in the real world, you know that something fundamental has happened. And this is one of the more interesting layers to this trend, which is that it's kind of anti-consumerism in nature. Like, it's not something trendy that people are going out to buy. It's an old thing that people are pulling out of their drawers that they forgot they even own. Like, Apple stock is not going to the roof because people are buying these simple wired headphones. People are lining up outside stores trying to buy them, resell them on the internet, make money. It's not a sort of weird ubiquity that makes them the symbol that they are. You know what I'm saying? Apple wired headphones have sort of become the mason jars of tech. Like, everyone has them, they don't care about them particularly, but they're so practical and useful that they're everywhere. Those are about mason jars, this is why it's such a widespread, because basically anyone can afford them. A lot of people are on them. So influencers and celebrities who are wearing them in a performative way, because this normal product makes them seem more normal and approachable. Because look, just like us, you know, look, it's me and my $20 headphones talking to my buddy. But all this aside, there is a very emotional reason why these headphones have come back in and stayed. And I wanted to rant about this for a very long time, which is the fact that Bluetooth technology actually just sucks. It's not good, okay? Because we live in now, I really wish I could just say that. Because we live in an online world nowadays, and you just need certain things in order to function, and most crucially the internet. So when you're traveling internationally, you want to stay connected. I really wish I could just say that the reason why wired headphones come back is because people hate Bluetooth technology so much. You're all like me, share my opinion, that's awesome. It's not the full story here. First, let me validate your instincts and mine, because yes, Bluetooth technology does. One of my most frustrating Bluetooth experiences is in the car, because if you and your wife or partner will ever have two phones that sync out to the car, it's just like a roulette every single time as to who's going to connect to, and then somebody gets a phone call and the phone connects to the car while you're driving, and it's just like absolute chaos every single time. But I'm not the one complaining about this. Reddit has multiple threads of people demanding answers, which is just fantastic. I scrolled through for a while while I was researching one of my favorites. I have to use a Bluetooth headset from my laptop, and it fails 1 out of 5 days for no reason. Like, that's crazy. This is a modern piece of technology. There is some journalistic sources that are talking about this as well. CNN had an article called "Why Bluetooth Remains an Unusually Painful Technology After 2 Decades." So why does Bluetooth suck? A great question, which I'm happy to solve for you. So you don't have to do it yourself. The article goes on to explain the Bluetooth works on is used by a lot of others, so that's part of the issue also. But hearing that it has to be kind of because there's a big security risk with this kind of technology. So that's the short and boring factual answer. But despite this blatantly inconsistent text absolutely everywhere, right? And being implemented into more and more technology, which is also starting to make using Bluetooth even worse. We actually released a whole video about appliances and how like smart tech is actually super duper dumb. It's another video in which I got to express a lot of vague anger towards the world of technology. So if you're interested in that, we'll link down in the description. But here's maybe one of the craziest parts of this, because Apple redesigned their flagship around this technology when they got rid of the headphones. It's a crazy move. One of the biggest companies on the planet to make. Would you design a vehicle or something that worked on a form of energy that like hadn't been widely distributed around the country in which you also sell it? You know, like, wouldn't do that, right? Because that wouldn't work all that well. I don't like a car. I resent buying AirPods. So I do have to say that Apple does things a little better than most, and they have improved their connectivity between AirPods and other Apple products by using these new chips. And the whole system is about integrated for the most part. But even in this case, it's still not perfect. But apparently none of this is an issue. Their Bluetooth devices are still incredibly popular. They're only expected to become more common. It has been 10 years since the first AirPods were released. I know this was just yesterday. In those 10 years, we've gone from obsessed to exhausted. We are all constantly online. It's shaping our consumer habits in a bunch of very interesting ways. Like, in particular, it has created this offline move. This is something we talked about in a video named Analog Bag Trend, basically the bags of hobbies that are offline that you do, and we're trying to yourself to be offline more, because in a constantly online world, there's more and more people gravitating to these offline or analog ways of entertaining themselves. And ironically, now there is tons of videos of people online telling you what you need to be offline. And of course, really specifically, all the things you need to buy. Like, it has become a consumerism trend to buy things that make you look like you are offline. We actually listed wired headphones as one of the items that go in these analog bags. We made that video, but I would say they stand out more than the rest of the items they have resources. These we already talked about. I think there's a really easy visual cue for people to see. They're also very practical. So here are my wife's headphones. This is probably the experience of most people. Because we forget this is obviously not perfect technology in the sense. This is the difference between my wife and I. This would never be the case. I would have headphones angle, but she lives in a life angle, so you know what, I'm just gonna do this for her. Oh my god, this is brutal. How did she get this? Yes, oh my god, that was brutal. I got this whole rant about right there, and I have like a mild panic attack trying to untangle. And the thing is, like, I actually find these in my ears a lot better than the AirPods. It's not that they are bad. Like, these are pretty solid quality headphones, and they function well in most cases. Like, apparently streamers use wired headphones because there's no lag in them, right? Like, you can stream and hear everything as it's happening. Another thing, like, listen to this. Like, I don't know if you know that well, but like, there's a nice clickable button there. In a world of digital online everything, touch screens and whatever, it is a clickable button. It's kind of nice. It is a pleasant thing to have in your day-to-day. Something else that I like, so you're having a conversation, you're walking outside, it gets loud, you can just bring a microphone and nice click button like this. Like, that's a nice feature that you can't do with an AirPod. Like, very often on calls when I'm wearing my AirPods, people are like, oh my god, I can't hear you. What did you just do? That'll happen. So what's the downside of using wired headphones? Well, you can't like run around your house with microphones in your ear. It might be harder to work out with wired headphones. That's like really not the biggest deal. Is that worth like 200 extra price? Is that what it's worth? Really? But it's also hilarious because I think the Apple headphones specifically, like these wired headphones are the ones that are holding on, because they're associated with that, right? So even though you have this sort of pedestrian everyday kind of product, it is connected to an Apple device, which is known to be more luxurious, which is known to be more expensive and whatnot. So you will get a bit of a flex while wearing your everyday approachable tech, right? And I think that's why these have become so important. Why not go away anytime soon? Because a lot of things in the analog trend are not very practical. Even in the world of convenience, and things that are truly inconvenient don't typically last all that long. But these are pretty solid. A lot of stuff in these analog bags aren't very practical. Right? You're really busting out calling about your commute work in the morning public. But that's why these headphones are, and why I don't think they're going anywhere anytime. Thank you so much for watching. If you're subscribed.
Here's the thing with charismatic attraction. Attraction is determined by the beholder. The sense of attraction is in the other person's charisma is the effect that you have on other people. So with charismatic leaders, they are doing something that coalesces people around them, that draws people in. So attraction is what you are drawn to. Charisma is what draws people to you. So I focus on charisma. Charisma also appears to be very reliable in you, whereas you can't change what someone's preferences are. What they're attracted to is for them to decide, right? And lots of tragically heterosexual and homosexual people have tried to get somebody else to switch teams. I have a gay best friend. I just want to try doing something like it. Or I have a straight best friend, and he's so beautiful, and I wish he would just try it. Right? So all these things are actually discrete parts of this equation of love and relationship. I'm trying to break it apart for y'all. So Alma would say.
Yes.
One, two, three, four.
So Wow Mal was a fellow edgelord of mine back in middle school, and you could not catch that kid going more than 2 class periods without throwing up Vape Nation gang signs, sneaking in a Papa Bless pose during class photos. Also, while waiting for the next prank invasion, it's time to stop video to drop from Ethan.
Yo, I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I lost the Wild Mal mask, bro. I can't fucking find it, bro. Seriously, it's fucking gone. I don't know what to do. I got this Frankenstein mask I got for Halloween. Okay, guys, I just looked through my emails, right, bro? And I saw something that's a little bit interesting. Maybe you guys should know about this. Ethan Klein is going around suing people who has wronged him. And it's usually big names like Ian, Hassan, I don't know, some other streamer. I don't know anything about this shit. I don't know what Ethan is talking. I don't know the drama. So imagine my shock when I see I'm actually one of these creators being threatened with a lawsuit from Ethan Klein. What did I do to this guy? What did I do to this guy? I don't want to say anything that gets me in more trouble, dog. I'm not good with the law. I'm not very smart. I don't know if sharing a cease and desist letter is a good idea. Anyway, guys, look at this fucking cease and desist letter, bro. Hello, we are acting on behalf of Ethan Klein, who operates professionally as H3H3. It has come to our attention that you have published false and defamatory statements concerning our client, including but not limited to a video published on YouTube in which you implied that our client supports the genocide of Palestine. This allegation is false. A statement posted on X, formerly Twitter, falsely asserting that our client uses cocaine. This is categorically false and defamatory. These statements are defamatory per se, as they cause serious harm to our client's reputation. Accordingly, we demand that you immediately cease and desist from making or publishing any further false defamatory statements about our client. Dog! Provide written confirmation within 7 days that you have complied with these demands. Ow! Fuck, dude. Fuck! I'm gonna get sued by fucking Ethan Klein, bro! Please be advised that if you fail to comply, our client reserves the right to commence legal proceedings without further notice, seeking damages, legal costs, and injunctive relief. That's 3 things he could sue me for, bro. What the fuck? Damages? Me? How are you gonna sue me, bro? I got nothing. I'm broke as hell. What the fuck you gonna get out of me? You gonna sue me into oblivion? I am working a minimum wage job at a fast food restaurant, bro. The fuck you gonna get out of me? You want 5 quid, bro? Please don't take my 5 quid, bro. I'm broke as fuck, Ethan. I once got caught on TFL Rail, right? I was using a rail card that wasn't completely accurate. When they caught me, I just told them to kill me, bro. I can't pay a full fucking ticket, dog.
Just do it. Just fucking kill me, dude. I can't pay the fine, bro. Just kill me, bro.
Their client uses coke. Listen, you can get around this by simply correctly and truly asserting that the client uses meth.
I'm not gonna do that, bro.
You can say he uses meth instead of coke. You can say he uses heroin instead of coke. You can say whatever. You just don't have to say coke anymore. Well, you can't say or you can't imply that he supports the genocide of Palestine. You can say he's a Zionist and that he probably doesn't mind the death of innocent. I would say something like that because they've already said this allegation is false and seriously damaging. But I don't know. I think you can say other shit.
Oh, sweet.
You can get away with that. You can also reply to this email right now. Actually, I think I will reply to it right now.
What?
Oh my god.
I think
Shut up. Please, no, bro. Okay. I guess I gotta do it. So they're either telling me to take down the claims or retract. I'm gonna choose retract since you've given me the option. Ethan, you do not do cocaine. I'm sorry, bro. You don't do coke. I take it back. I don't even know why I said it. It was 2 years ago. And also, you do not support the genocide in Palestine. I'm glad we cleared that up, Ethan. Ethan, you are one of my childhood heroes, bro. I fucking loved you as a kid. I spent all my time in fucking recess watching your videos. I love the music you put out, the little acoustic guitar songs that you made for Hila. I'd listen to that shit as a little kid. And I'm talking like 14, 15. My mind was developing, man, and you were a big part of it. Now you sent me a fucking cease and desist letter. You taught me I could have fun on the internet, dude. I thought you were so funny, man. Now I got a cease and desist letter from you. Shit. It is crazy how life... Hey, bro, let's not get too deep, bro. I retract my statements. Ethan, don't sue me for the love of God, bro. I'm broke as fuck, dude. Yo, you guys play the Wordle today, bro? Yo, let's get it. Let's get it. This is my method. I've coined this method myself. So you start with soar, which is like pretty basic. But then you follow it up with unlit, which is like the other common words. And as you can see, it's actually not that good. What I then like to follow it up with is him. I got no idea what that means. Damn, my method sucks, bro. What the hell? What could this word be, bro? Meeg? Beam? What? Beam? Weave. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, dude. Beep. Beep. Beef.
Própolis cura gripe? Eu confesso que toda vez que alguém falava de própolis comigo, eu ficava com o pé atrás, porque o que mais tem por aí são produtos com falsas promessas de benefícios, não é mesmo? Mas eu fui atrás dos estudos e eles falam que o própolis ajuda a aliviar os sintomas leves de gripe e dor de garganta. Mas cura? Não. O estudo mostrou que usar spray de própolis direto na garganta 3 vezes ao dia quando você tá resfriado diminui a duração dos sintomas respiratórios. Ao invés de passar 5 dias com dor de garganta, que é o normal para gripes e resfriados, você vai ter só 3 dias de sintomas.
Pelo visto, minha avó também.
Agora me diga se você já usou própolis e diga olá, ciência.
Oh boy. This was a triumph. Do it. Let me check. A net. What a net.
Hi, welcome to the June edition of Steam Next Fest. My coworkers did not appreciate the fact that I forced them on camera for the pre-roll video of the February edition, so I've been forbidden from doing another video, which is why I'm hiding in one of our phone rooms anyway. Steam Next Fest is all about celebrating brand new games from developers all over the world. You get to play free demos all week before these even launch on Steam. Just make sure to wishlist your favorites so that you can stay in the know, as they say. There's developer live chats and live streams, and just what? No, I'm not.
Bro. Anyway. Anyway, there's another channel as well. Another one. Boom, boom, boom. Like 5. Gosh.
The Shrek 5 trailer looks bad. Well, at least they use illustrations similar to the original storybooks, which is good. However, people are clowning on the overall art style, saying that it looks like it came from a different studio entirely. Plus, after the kerfuffle of the original cast announcement, it seems viewers are still unhappy with how the whole thing looks. Although they definitely did change the way Shrek looks now to appease fans. As you can see, his face is more in line with the original rather than what it was. In the latest version, it's like the models for Shrek and his family are somehow just off. Almost like they're too fluid or something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Then there's the look of his sons, with many likening one of them to the director of the Backrooms. It was cool that the makers of Shrek referenced its online notoriety, but the fact is that this newest iteration of Shrek has not been looked upon favorably. Fans speculate the reason it was delayed after the initial cast announcement came out is because people just straight up guessed the plot of the movie, and they had to rewrite the entire thing. In fact, I can't seem to access Universal's comment section on their YouTube video for the trailer at all, so maybe they turned it off after the flood of negative comments. People really do care about Shrek, as the franchise has been going for over 20 years now, allowing audiences to grow up with him and as he ages in each film. This is why there's so much discourse about what amounts to a children's franchise, as the kids that grew up with him are now adults that are demanding more. So when this teaser trailer came out and it looked off, the disappointment for many was immeasurable, and it's clear their day was ruined. Again, maybe it's just the fact that Shrek looks almost too nice. He's meant to be a bit rough around the edges, and he and his pals look as if Disney has had their way with them with an almost overly expressionistic style that looks like it should be in another movie. With that being said, the actual film hasn't even come out yet, so who knows? Perhaps all this doom and gloom is wrong, and it'll actually be amazing. Essentially, the new look for Shrek 5 has attracted the frustrations of fans of the franchise due to the fact that it simply looks off, and given the fact that it's always had such a large impact on internet culture, those online fans are more than happy to make their opinions known. See you next time on Lessons in Internet Culture.
Tries to modernize something. Somehow. You get a downgrade. Truly ogre. It's truly ogre. Whoop. Whoa. Let's see. Yep. Let me watch this part. What? Where's the playback?
All right, I am mind blown at this new Epstein reporting that was revealed by the New York Times yesterday, and holy absolute shit, we have to dig into this. I want to issue a trigger warning up front in this video because we're going to be talking about a lot of sensitive topics, a lot of sensitive material that has been leaked, and a lot of the Epstein survivors' stories themselves. But the situation is much worse than any of us thought. The White House had to hold a series of crisis meetings in the Situation Room in order to try to quell the stories that were coming out about Donald Trump and Epstein's joint adventures, to say the least. I also want to say that almost exactly 1 year ago to the date, on June 6th of 2025, Elon Musk was the one who effectively reopened the entire Epstein saga by tweeting this out. Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT, said Elon Musk almost a year ago to the day. About 2 months before this, Pam Bondi went on Fox News and said that she had the Epstein files sitting on her desk. So we now have a much more clear picture of the sequence of events that played out over the course of last summer as it pertains to the Epstein files. And holy shit, it is so much worse than we thought. As always, if you appreciate these videos on the Adam Mocker feed, make sure you drop a like to help boost the truth at a time when it feels like the algorithms are mainly pushing this right-wing lie slop. So we're going to continue to double down on the factual reporting, and Mocker Media is working on some really interesting shows and formats coming soon. So subscribe below. And I just want to start from the beginning. Elon Musk sent out this tweet. He was working in the administration at the time, gathering all of our Social Security Administration data, gathering all of our voter data according to the reports. So you can safely assume that he had access to other data, other files. At the same time, the White House held a series of Situation Room meetings in which they tried to figure out how to stop these stories from spreading. These meetings included J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Susie Wiles, Kash Patel. Some of them included the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Obviously, a few of these folks are gone now, especially Pam Bondi. But all hands were on deck to try to quell these stories. And the reports are, even administration officials were surprised at the fetishes that were revealed surrounding Donald Trump. I put your warning at the beginning because Trump reportedly has a very weird nipple fetish that got kind of violent and odd. And this was revealed in emails between Virginia Giuffre, one of the main accusers of Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrews, who's actually groomed out of Mar-a-Lago, and another reporter that had these emails saved and was then suing Jeffrey Epstein. Starting here, Vice President J.D. Vance took a seat at the head of the Situation Table in the John F. Kennedy conference room of the Situation Room complex. You know, there were other things going on at the time, global issues, domestic economic issues. So it doesn't make me feel that secure that during a time when Russia's invading Ukraine, during a time when Trump is ramping up these wars, they're using the Situation Room to talk about Donald Trump's alleged pedophilia. Lord have mercy. But Vice President J.D. Vance took a seat at the head of the Situation Room. The first meeting was held on July 17th of 2025 around 6 o'clock in the evening when Trump officials piled into the Situation Room secure bunker in order to talk about this. We've seen this very same Situation Room when Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton were able to take out Osama bin Laden in 2011. They were watching the raid that was taking out Osama bin Laden. So it's about the fall from grace that the Situation Room has had, and taking out Osama bin Laden and then covering up pedophilia of the president. It's also very much so that the first Situation Room meeting happened on July 17th, only about a week and a half after Elon Musk sent out this tweet. So he really did reopen his wound for everybody. Vice President J.D. Vance took a seat at the head of the table in the John F. Kennedy conference room. Quote, this is a huge problem. He told the group. Right around him were the White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, the White House Counsel David Worthington, the Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, the Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Buttigieg, Stephen Chung, Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel joined on speakerphone. They had multiple emergency Situation Room meetings about this that we'll get into with different characters. The Vice President appeared panicked. Others in the room about the way the subject of Epstein was already dividing the MAGA coalition. Some senior officials had the impression that Vance had bought into the darkest theories about Epstein and a cabal of predators hidden within the country's ruling class. Remember, J.D. Vance went on these podcasts during the election and promised to release the Epstein files. So there were real stakes for J.D. Vance. I think the stakes for J.D. Vance and Trump are a little bit different. Trump is hiding the files because he's in the damn files. J.D. Vance, I don't think he was in the files. He's not associated with Epstein in that manner, other than his Peter Thiel connection. But J.D. Vance staked his reputation on these Epstein files, and then J.D. Vance was a true believer that there was a cabal of Democrats in the files. So imagine the slap in the face when they get to the Situation Room and it's all about Trump.
Here's JD Vance on Theo Vaughn's podcast saying we need to release the Epstein files. I want you to remember this clip as I continue to narrate the situation room crisis.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing. One more time. Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
He says we need to release the Epstein files. The vice president appeared panicked to others in the room. He seems to have bought in on the darkest theories about Epstein and the cabal of predators. Wiles would tell others that the vice president had proved himself to be a major conspiracy theorist. She did say that. Another top official later said that Vance had been pounding on the Epstein issue since the release of the memo. He was privately pressing for the administration to release all of the Epstein files, everything in the Justice Department's possession, even encouraging a congressional investigation. Vance told the group that he believed all of the files should be released as soon as possible. I can't lie. Vance seems to be the only one in the situation room with understanding of how awful this looks for the admin. Vance is probably more plugged in online to these newer bro circles, and he talked to Theo a lot about it. He probably realized how awful it looked, and he seemed to be a true believer. This doesn't take any agency away from him. He has covered up and lied about the Epstein files himself and is now a part of the cover-up conspiracy, if you want to call it that. Vance told the group he believed all the files should be released. It was already clear that a bipartisan coalition in favor of such action was forming on Capitol Hill, and the momentum was going in one direction. That was to release the files. If the administration got out ahead of this and released everything voluntarily, including whatever material existed, they would at least get credit for transparency. The alternative was to let the story drag on for months as information dripped out, which is what ended up happening. This is a good time to point out that Trump has tried to intentionally coerce every single person in the MAGA base, whether it's pundits, commentators on TV, or politicians, into following along with his Epstein files lies. We know this because Marjorie Taylor Greene said she was threatened by Donald Trump. Her family was threatened. We know this because we have new reports that even Charlie Kirk himself was screamed at by Donald Trump over the phone, and then Charlie Kirk went on his podcast the next day and said, "I'm done talking about the files." I mean, for real, I want to show you this clip of Charlie Kirk just completely giving in to Donald Trump, but let me lay the groundwork very, very quickly. This reads: Trump lost it at Charlie Kirk for continuing to talk about Epstein. Kirk did not stop his Turning Point colleagues from discussing the files, much to Trump's dismay. Trump had called Kirk and scolded him for providing a venue for young people to slam Attorney General Pam Bondi. Kirk, by virtue of his position leading the youth Republican movement, could see that the Epstein files would become a divisive issue for young voters. He urged the White House to change course on the matter, but they would not relent. So JD Vance and Charlie Kirk, who are, I guess, younger than the rest of the administration, seem to understand the stakes and the optics here, but Trump was not shy in expressing his frustration. He reportedly told them that he was very unhappy with his famed supporters, raging against the likes of Kirk, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. And before I play this Charlie Kirk clip, it's also worth pointing out to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The American people's trust, as a matter of fact, we should consider them as, they should be considered traitors. They're traitors. The ones that refuse to release Epstein files, want to cover up pedophiles and rapists and all sorts of disgusting things in these files. Those are the traitors to the American people, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
I mean, this report basically says it was the president who didn't want anything released. Are you saying that applies to the president himself?
I'm saying exactly that. He told me on the phone that his friends would get hurt, and that's why he's against releasing the Epstein files, and I think we've seen a lot of that dribble out. So yeah, it all matches. It completely adds up. From the phone call that I had with the president to this report that is coming out, it totally all lines up.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable to hear you say that you think the president is a traitor.
What is remarkable to me is that this administration, people that we voted for, demanding transparency, the man that campaigned all over the country claiming that he would be the one to drain the swamp, is the very man that fought to keep the Epstein files from being released. And then he in turn called me the traitor because I fought to release the Epstein files. You know, many people have turned and said, "Oh, she's a Democrat now." I'm not a Democrat. Nothing changed about my views. I'm unapologetically America first. As a matter of fact, I've taken off the team.
Wow, I just want to put this into perspective. We now have more insight into the MAGA movement's fracturing. It was pretty obvious to anyone that was paying attention that Donald Trump was precisely targeting any Republicans who wanted to release the files. He primaried Thomas Massie. He tried to kick Nancy Mace out of politics. Marjorie Taylor Greene, he threatened her and her son. He called her Marjorie Traitor Greene. And then when Marjorie said, "Hey, my son is getting death threats and people are telling him that his mom's a traitor," Donald Trump said, "Good, you deserve it." It's wholly absolute deranged. You think this guy is deranged enough to mess around with underage women and hang out with Epstein? Obviously. The same guy who's trying to cover up his tracks was the same guy who's so deranged that he did this all in the first place. This brings us on to Charlie Kirk, who honestly gave in after Donald Trump had called Kirk and scolded him. Charlie Kirk then on his show began to say, "I'm done talking about the files." This is honestly just weakness.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm gonna trust my friends in the administration. I'm gonna trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done. Solve it. Balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine.
If anybody is skeptical of reporting that Donald Trump called Kirk and yelled at him, it's so incredibly obvious. Kirk backed down from his previous coverage.
We are messengers here. We are relaying what we are hearing from your most loyal ultra MAGA supporters all the time. And it's not that people are saying, you know, they want to learn about Epstein because they have any suspicion of President Trump. No, we don't. No one thinks you're involved in any way of that stuff whatsoever.
2 months later, Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, and it's also worth pointing out Virginia Giuffre, one of the main accusers of Jeffrey Epstein, who was groomed out of Mar-a-Lago, killed herself 3 months into Trump's second term. Jeffrey Epstein allegedly killed himself during Donald Trump's first term. It's just worth pointing all of this out. But this really contextualizes everything. I now want to return back to the article because we just heard Charlie Kirk himself say. What did he say? He's going to trust the administration.
Do what needs to be done. Solve it. Balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration.
Okay, he's going to trust his friends in the administration. Let's see exactly what was happening in this administration. The vice president was panicked. They were calling emergency meetings in the Situation Room. JD Vance was lying on air saying he wanted to release the files, while behind the scenes urging everybody to stop covering stuff up. Vance had also floated to colleagues an extraordinary PR gambit that the White House should enlist Tucker Carlson to interview Epstein's longtime girlfriend and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. It might help the president if Maxwell was willing to state that Trump had not been part of any wrongdoing. They're trying to use the predator, the actual sexual predator, to exonerate the alleged president's predatory behavior. This is absurd. I mean, if Epstein were alive, they would probably be trying to coerce Epstein himself. I mean, maybe they did during the first term. Who knows? Vance told the group he believed all the files should be released as soon as possible. He argued that Congress was going to force the release of the files eventually. It was already clear that a bipartisan coalition was forming, as I said, and to continue. For weeks, Patel and Bongino, the FBI director, had grown more infuriated as they realized the scale of the mess for which they were now being blamed. It almost seems like there's a divide based on how on Twitter you are. Like Pam Bondi and Trump didn't really understand the stakes here. Susie Wiles thought they just covered up, but anybody who actually understood this, like Charlie Kirk, Dan Bongino, these terminally online people, understood how damaging this was. They repeatedly raised alarms internally that the Epstein crisis was gathering momentum with Trump supporters. Bongino is actually a podcast host, and he's not a podcast host again, just purely for MAGA lunatics. So he knows, he's got his finger on the pulse. I'm not trying to give him credit or praise him. I'm just saying a few people in the admin understood what was happening in the base. Bongino wanted to convey something definitive to the MAGA base, and he and Patel pushed for the immediate release of surveillance footage from the federal facility where Epstein was found dead in a cell. I want to point out that surveillance footage was released and it was missing multiple minutes, and there was an edit in Premiere Pro that they had found through metadata. To continue, Bongino hated the Justice Department's nothing to see here memo being drawn up for public release. He told Patel this would in no way align with their promises of transparency after taking over the FBI, and he objected to putting the FBI seal on the letterhead. I really feel like we're starting to piece together the story more here. So Elon Musk sends out his tweet. Pam Bondi, a few months prior, so the files were on her desk. They then began to hold situation room meetings week after week trying to cover this up, trying to call out the MAGA base, or coerce the MAGA base rather, using threats and force. We have Charlie Kirk saying, "I'm done talking about this." We have Marjorie Taylor Greene get threatened personally, her family threatened. Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie, anybody, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, anybody who went against the narratives that were being created in the Situation Room was then a traitor in this administration's eyes. It's kind of wild how back in the mid-2000s, the Situation Room was being used to create lies about weapons of mass destruction, and anybody who would call that out would be called a traitor to America. Now we've fallen so far that we're still making up lies about WMDs, by the way. Ads and pedophilia as well, and that's where we are in the modern day. Okay, here's where it gets wild, and if YouTube decides to strike down this video or remove all ads, and I guess I don't blame them. But if you want to support this either way, make sure you drop a like. This says the vice president said he thought the president would be okay with releasing these nipple-related documents, arguing that Trump had been accused of worse. For more context, in some of the emails, a journalist named Ransom, who was emailing with Virginia Giuffre, who allegedly killed herself 3 months into Trump's second term, Ransom claimed she had known a girl in Epstein's sex trafficking ring named Jen, who said she had sex with Trump. Ransom also claimed that Jen told her Trump had a predilection for nipples and he aggressively flicked and sucked hers. Ransom wrote that she had seen evidence when she shared a bathroom with Jen. They looked incredibly painful as they were red and swollen. I remember wincing when I looked at them, she wrote. Ransom's credibility was not uncomplicated. She had made another claim that she possessed video footage of prominent men having sex with young girls in Epstein's entourage. She later retracted the claim, saying she feared for herself and her family. But after a federal judge ordered the unsealing of some of the Virginia Giuffre case files in 2023, the document that connected Trump to the claim about abused nipples was among the material that came out. It was an unconfirmed allegation, had not publicly been made yet, but the disclosure led to some articles that were quickly lost in the swirl of election year news. Some of the advisors in the Situation Room had never heard of this nipple claim. Those who had seemed to have heard about it only had a passing familiarity with it. Many in the room thought this was all just discredited nonsense, so it might not matter. Okay, so they thought it was such discredited nonsense that they decided to call, coerce, and bully any MAGA person who wanted to investigate this. If it was such BS, then let people investigate this and talk about it. The ransom emails could get new attention if they were included in the public-facing Epstein library. That's probably why the library was immediately redacted, or at least parts of it, after it was released. Giuffre, who had met Epstein when she was a teen at Trump's spa, Mar-a-Lago, became one of the sex offender's most outspoken victims. Talking about Epstein. Giuffre stated in 2016 that to her knowledge, Trump had done nothing improper. She also was a Trump supporter as recently as 2024. This loops me all the way back around to Elon Musk and Donald Trump's big falling out. I feel like we have a much stronger mental model of everything that's been released. You know, this video hasn't even been me digging into some of the craziest allegations against Trump. The fact that him and Epstein were best friends throughout the peak of Epstein's sex trafficking. The fact that he sent Epstein a really ominous letter for Epstein's 50th birthday. We haven't even touched into a lot of that because this video is mainly just for laying out the timeline of events. If you appreciate these videos and the autobiography, do you want us to double down and expose this administration? You can do two things. You can drop
like below. You can subscribe to the Atomography. And most importantly, third thing, have a great rest of your day. I love you all. Peace out.
The fundamental problem in getting people elected. This will keep happening over and over and over. There's no point, much of a point in covering up this bullshit if it's gonna keep repeating itself over and over. Yeah. Mm. I took down my mega later 20 minutes. Whatever. Enough journalism has been made. Only it's just, yeah, activism at this point is just what is left. But yeah, how possible is that? God damn it.
On May 15th, 2026, at 10 a.m. EST, the Tencent Nintendo Switch Online servers shut down. However, there was a fellow known as Slithery Sheep who was still connected online after that time, along with everyone else. Today, I'm going to talk about the disaster that was the Tencent Nintendo Switch shutdown that took place just a few weeks ago. If you have no clue what I'm even talking about, then please go check out my other epic videos about the Tencent Switch. But basically, the Nintendo Switch made its way to China in December 2019, and was one of the last countries to get it over 2 years after its launch pretty much everywhere else. Nintendo partnered with Tencent to distribute it in China, so it's called the Tencent Nintendo Switch. And just like every other Nintendo console that is released in China, it had a very limited library of games and very limited functionality compared to the rest of the world. The Tencent Switch got about 50 total games released, which is not a lot, but most other Chinese Nintendo consoles didn't even get 10. Compared to the global Switch, there's a lot of missing features. There's no save data backups, none of the horrible NSO emulators, and you're limited to only being able to play officially released Tencent games online and only with other players in China. However, there were some pretty awesome things, such as Switch Online being totally free, which is how it should be anyways, as well as Nintendo offering 4 free first-party games from the eShop, although the latter was offered only because of a certain other announcement they made. Nintendo announced that on March 31st, 2026, purchases on Nintendo eShop would die, and all online services for this monster would be discontinued on May 15th at 10 p.m. China time. Official Nintendo Switch stuff shutting down in 2026, which I still find a little bit nuts. It pretty much comes down to Tencent not wanting to continue working on the Switch with Nintendo, so they decided to pull the plug. So, as a proud owner of the delicious Tencent Nintendo Switch, I have played a lot on it following the shutdown announcement, all the way up until the final day. So here's how it went. Before I actually start explaining everything that happened during shutdown day, I'm just gonna let you experience it along with me. So based upon this footage of me playing Mario Party Deluxe on shutdown day with 2 of my friends and a bunch of other random people in China, I was going to not get top ratings. And while this was happening, RTK1 was live on Twitch, so there were some beautiful moments such as this. The Ben's restaurant racing located at 2411 Sycamore Road, Del Cap, Illinois 60115 United States, the most loudest, earth-shattering Russian door of all mankind. I drove into a bomb. No! I can't believe I would. How would you avoid every single fiery balls? We're trying to get top 3 in a race before the service closed. We also started talking about Nintendo Network shutdown. What happened on Mario Party shutdown day for you guys? I stupidly was in another room because I was too scared of disconnecting, and she was stuck in another room. I was scared to leave. I was on Mario Kart 7 until shutdown day. 6 days did not last long on Mario Kart 7. Please, I'm sure I'm not even I just found the picture one. Alright, I guess that's my final VR. Alright, you're saving race, you're saying. Alright, after doing a ton of races in public lobbies, I decided to go into a friend room with just myself and my friend's other account. Wait, so are you coming back to Warlords or I think I'm just gonna stay here because I don't trust 2G connections that much until everyone else leaves. Nope. I actually love this room, guys. I'm just gonna play people and I'll be more fun, I guess. So now I'm gonna show you RTK1 POV from the moment the servers were about to close. 2 minutes. Your mic keeps cutting off. And it's about the last race is team, man, bro. That's beautiful. It captured. Press the screenshot button. It's about to be the end. It's about to be the end. It's like it's over. Guys, don't stop moving. Guys, it's over. No. Right over. It's all over again. Yes. And just like that, as soon as it hit 10 a.m., absolutely nothing changed. Everyone just kept racing. I guess you got ranked. Rosy video still loads. Yeah. Oh my god. It could be captured browser. How did you request at 10 a.m. when the server was supposed to go down? In fact, literally everything was fully working still. The eShop still loaded. I still see my friends online. And if you could disconnect and reconnect and join other players, keep in mind that quite literally everything was supposed to be on display. The eShop is definitely not supposed to load at all, and connecting to other players should no longer be possible. But it was. For comparison, when Nintendo Network for Wii U 3 shut down on April 8, 2024, May 100 Mario Challenge SMBs, the moment the shutdown time came, after times and confusion, everyone on Mario Kart 7 disconnected immediately, and all my connections to games were no longer possible. So yeah, something is certainly off here. My friends, myself, and people in China kept playing for a long time after. I thought that maybe some weird time zone mistranslation, slippery shenanigans might happen again like on Nintendo Network, but after hours and hours, there were still no signs of anything being shut down. However, one person did mention that Just Dance seemed to have actually shut down on time, but I couldn't actually check myself since I didn't have the game, and I probably wouldn't have got off Mario Kart. And I took their word for it though, and they also have recorded, so it looks like Just Dance was actually the only thing that shut down. That must have sucked for that guy. He really liked Just Dance. Okay, but still everything else was still up. Here's something a little bit insane. Someone I know received his Tencent Switch in the mail after the servers were said to have closed. He got his Switch, unboxed it, downloaded Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and joined up the lobby all after shutdown. Holy sandwiches. I didn't want to play for a trillion hours straight, but I also didn't want to disconnect from the game in case something did happen. So I just went and did it. A sad empty friend room and stayed there while I waited and hopped into some public racing occasionally. Eventually, it became past midnight, so it was already May 16th and had been for a while in China already, with still nothing at all shut down. I really thought they would just unplug the server rack or something and kill it all immediately, but nope, I went to bed for the night and when I woke up the next morning, it was still up. I was still online, and so was everyone else. It legit looks like they just straight up forgot. What do you mean we're over 24 hours after the specified shutdown time and it's not shut down? There are also no other announcements on their WeChat page or on the Switch news thing or whatever. I figured I was going to be offline for a while, so my friends and I went and explored some other games. It got to 2 days after shutdown, and we confirmed that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Tennis Aces, Super Mario Odyssey, Brain Age or whatever that Switch game's called, Human Fall Flat, and even Tencent Video, which is basically Chinese Netflix, were all still up and working. So I just stayed in my happy little empty room on Mario Kart and did some racing when I felt like it, and waited. By the way, we were all popping off while this was happening. It was insane to us that the servers weren't on yet, but then randomly out of nowhere, it happened. The world, as I knew it, had ended. I was in the middle of playing PGA Tour 2K25 on my Switch 2 when I took a glance at my other screen and saw that I had disconnected from my empty lobby. This was May 19th at 12:46 a.m., nearly 4 days past shutdown. When I went to try to reconnect online, it was dead. I got this error code over and over, which basically tells you could not connect to the server. Oh no. There was also this weird connection error I got when trying sometimes where you just kind of do that. I alerted others about this terrible news and I checked on all the other games I could, and they were all not working. The eShop died too, and so did Tencent Video. it finally died. I didn't capture the exact moment it happened, sadly, but my guess is that it happened at 12 a.m., which would have been noon in China. No one was able to stay connected after this blast, unlike Nintendo network shutdown, where you keep playing as long as you can disconnect. Fast forward a few hours, and things got absolutely atrocious. They killed the server so hard that you literally cannot complete a successful connection test on the console anymore. You just get this DNS error no matter what you try. They completely killed everything. This Wi-Fi symbol on the home menu can never be activated again. My friend's list is now forever frozen, showing who was online when the server died, and it'll be like that until I shut off the console. They really meant all online services would be discontinued. They weren't kidding. Even though they were like, so let's go over what this means for every Chinese Nintendo Switch console. This thing is now even more useless than the Wii Mini. You cannot download game updates. You can't download system updates, which also means you can't play game cartridges that require firmware versions past version 19. You can't look at your friends list. You can't make a new account. Obviously, you can't play games online where you download them. Even if you bought them from the eShop, you can never download them. This thing basically just turned into a brick. There are legitimately more things you can do with a Switch as a console. Not to mention that every single Tencent Switch does have to be tuned on or rolled out. All that is left to do on this is turn it on and play only compatible game cartridges offline only. That's pretty rough. Let's take a look at some other Chinese Nintendo consoles that have all been discontinued. So first we have the iQ Player. This was the first Nintendo console in China that released under the iQ brand. As you can see, smack in the middle of this controller/console hybrid. Without going super in depth, this is the plug-and-play version of the Nintendo 64. It plays only Nintendo 64 games that are stored not on cartridges but are on this memory card. And games can be downloaded from iQ stations that you could find in stores at the time, or you could download them online from the iQ at-home software. I have actually tried in the past to get that software working, but I just can't. And not that it would matter anyways because the service was discontinued in 2016, I believe, which is actually a really long time. This thing lasted longer than Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. They would transfer the games you bought from your computer via a cable that you connect a controller to the computer with, and the games would be downloaded to the memory card. The memory card does not have that much space on it, so some games you have to sacrifice to download more. And then in 2009, Nintendo released the iQ DSi in China. And the reason I'm jumping straight to the DSi and not the original DS or DS Lite is because none of the official iQ DS games that released in China had support for Nintendo WSC, meaning none of them had online player, any online functionality at all. There were only 6 games released for the iQ DS, all of which can be played on the iQ DSi, and one of which is exclusive to the iQ DSi because they forgot to make a physical version. So to bundle it with the DSi, they converted Nintendogs to a DSiWare title, and it came pre-installed. Now, along with that, the iQ DSi does have the iQ DSi shop, so you were able to download some DSiWare games. By the way, none of the DSiWare games that released had Nintendo WSC support. I have some DSiWare downloaded on mine. I have Dr. Mario Express, WarioWare Snap, Mario Calculator, Roblox, Paper Plane, and Photo Block, all of them necessary. Sadly, the iQ DSi shop is not working anymore. I believe it shut down at the exact same time that the Nintendo DSi shop shut down. Everywhere else, you can't buy DSiWare anymore. Fun fact, there were more iQ DSiWare games released than iQ DS games released on cartridge. I don't know if this is just a me thing, but the DSi shop is not loaded all for me. It just gives me an error code that I can't show you because I don't have my internet set up right now. But it is actually fully gone. That means you can't re-download any DSiWare you bought previously. And now we have reached the last iQ console that was ever made, the iQ 3DS XL. This thing is a failure, to be honest. First of all, they only made the 3DS XL. They didn't make any other model of the 3DS for China. Second of all, the game card slot is completely useless and only exists to collect cobwebs because they did not make a single iQ 3DS cartridge. As I've said probably a million times before, at this point there were only 2 games that they released on this: Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7, both of which came pre-installed on every iQ 3DS ever made. And polar opposite to the iQ DSi, this time there is absolutely no digital shop. There's no Nintendo eShop, so you can't buy any more games. These were the only 2 ever made for this console. However, you can play Mario Kart 7 online. That is the only online functionality that this console has. Is Mario Kart 7. iQ Mario Kart 7 never got updated past version 1.1. So prior to patch 1.2, you could actually play iQ Mario Kart 7 with anyone in the world, not just restricted to China. But after they dropped update 1.2 randomly, that update knocked out in China. So you could still go online on iQ Mario Kart 7, but you could only find players who were also on version 1.0. So basically, anyone who was updated, which I think it forced you to update if you are not iQ 3DS. So basically, it got restricted to everyone in China. And if the rumors are true about this thing only selling 10,000 units, then yeah, it probably goes down. Unfortunately, I got my iQ 3DS after Nintendo Network shut down, which is what this used, so I was not able to experience the iQ Mario Kart 7 community. However, as far as functionality, the friends list still fully works, and you can still add people, you can still see what they're playing. Also, you're not restricted to only adding people in China like the Tencent Switch. You can add people on any regular 3DS that's on Nintendo Network because there's no eShop and these games are digital only. If you ever delete your game or format a console, these games are just gone forever. In conclusion, Nintendo in China is officially dead. There are no more services at all. There's no online play for anything, and repair services for every console have been discontinued. I'm also fairly confident that there are no more consoles, games, or any accessories being used in China whatsoever. So this marks the end for now. Until a possible Chinese Nintendo Switch 2, which doesn't seem likely to me, but I guess could still technically happen. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. If you like the video, of course, be sure to send me a free pizza, and I'll see you guys later.
Oh. That's depressing. Oh well. Another one? Or is it the same as a good dude? Yeah. Well, refresh one last time, I guess. I don't think I missed anything. Let me check on everything first. Mm. First. Mm. Where was it again? I just read before. Mm, mm, mm. Boom. How did it go all the way down there? Did I just... I forgot to just add to the list all these. Okay. Skip, doing good. Okay, skip all the way down there. Jeez. Unbelievable. I simply forgot to keep the listing. Which, wait. Is that the one? Mm. Mm, 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 mm. Oh, that's weird. Ah. I guess it's just that I was supposed to put it right there. Or maybe just... Oh no, it was supposed to be just 5 times. Maybe it was by mistake. Wait, what a mess. I never got so lost in doing this. But just make sure it's in the right order. Let's see. Oops. My computer. And back here. True. Top to bottom, I guess. Making sure I didn't fuck it up even further. Okay, always. Under Y. Okay. Right. List. Skip on that one. Well, that's another.
Oh my god, that's why Scott's talking about too many games 2026 alarm. I haven't started doing it. Things broken. Hello, friends. I would like to discuss my impending arrival at a certain convention in Philadelphia. That being, not this year. It's been 4 years since I've been to too many games. I'm really excited to be back this year from June 26th to the 28th with the rest of the Blue Border Entertainment crew. That being Sam, Eric, Dominic, Justin, and Jeff. We'll be there all weekend doing meet and greets and signing during these times. There are no fees for autographs or pictures. We're just happy to meet and chat with whoever happens to show up. And if you show up for signs, we're giving away 2 pieces of exclusive merch for free. This poster and tote bag designed specifically for TMG 2026. These are completely free and are only available at this specific event. What a wonderful way to create an alibi. Oh, I couldn't possibly commit that murder from June 26th to the 28th. I have Scott the Woz poster from too many games. We got 2 Q&A panels during the event. One is specifically just a Scott the Woz panel featuring just me. The other is a Scott Stash panel featuring me plus everybody else. If you don't really care about Scott the Woz, you can just go to the first panel. If you care about everything we do, boom, you can go to the second panel. That includes the entire group. Plus, I agreed to present an award at the Too Many Games Indie Game Showcase Awards taking place at this time right here. Too Many Games has been home to some of my favorite memories of the past few years. I'm very excited to be back to add to that memory pile. Don't believe me? Well, let us refer to my personal Too Many Games 2022 photo album I had printed for me and the guys, consisting of literally any photo I could find on social media anybody posted with us. Look at this. We can do all of this again. I swear to God, I run into the Peter Griffin cosplayer again.
Pablo.
If you wanted to protect your privacy, you might be told to do this. Disable location services. The problem is, if you do this, you can't use map navigation, and your location is still tracked by your phone and many apps on it. So today, I'll show you everything you need to do to protect your location from all threats, properly and without any leaks. And you'll still get to use your maps completely private. There's one major piece of disinformation out there I need to address first. You might have heard of Faraday bags and how if you put your phone into one of them, only then can it be truly private. Well, it's true that if a Faraday bag works, it'll block all radio signals. But what you'll notice is that it's also hard to use your phone while in the bag. To use it, you have to take it out and strip yourself of all the protections. So what's the point of hiding your location if you can't use the phone? A much better way to block location tracking would be to stand next to one of these. An electronic warfare system like the Proximus Prometheus MF5. These are designed to interfere with all radio electronic emissions with a range of up to several kilometers, affording unsolicited privacy not just for you, but your whole neighborhood. If you can't afford one of these, you can find them in most active war zones around the world. But what's the point of protecting your location if you might also get out without having to worry about deleting your browser history? Let me give you a copyright advice without garbage paid for by Xbox deals. You don't need to disable location services in order for apps on your phone to not have access to it. I'm not an Android, iOS, and graphic OS. You should go to the location permission settings and go to location access to apps that don't need it. As you can see, I already did this on my graphic OS. I'm showing you now. If that means a location, like for maps, for instance, it should only need it while you're using it or on a one-time basis. There's next to no reason for an app to always require background access to your location. Precise location should only be required by maps, and everything else should get coarse location at best. Especially if you're in graphic OS, you get manual control like you can't get anywhere else. It's beautiful. I'll show you a trick how you can use maps and navigation completely private. Yes, it's doable. Most people default to using Google or Apple Maps for navigation or finding places, and they don't think twice about how usage data is collected or how using online maps is inherently invasive, or they think there's no better option. But there is a better way that works just as well. Instead of an online map, use free and open source offline maps you download straight to your phone and never use the internet for. All you need for navigation is GPS, and when you only use GPS, your device identity is not leaked. I personally love using organic maps or OSMN. I just download maps I need for my region and update them on a regular basis. No information about my travels ever leaves my device. If you use Android with Google or iOS, then you also need to worry about Google and Apple tracking you through your accounts. You need to go to the settings of your Google account or Apple ID and toggle off all the location-related tracking, including any web and activating other user history. Apple is known to routinely ignore user consent and settings, and Google settings are just as much of a black box. So you shouldn't trust their word alone and should ensure yourself with the following steps. IP address. Next big way, apps track your location is your IP address. A single advertising network present on multiple apps and websites can track you down even across multiple devices. Google, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Adobe, Apple, etc. They can all track you even if you don't have an account with them. Your IP address is your location, and your location is your home. That's your identity too. So you better hide your IP address. The best balance between usability and privacy is a VPN. Don't trust any VPN. A multi-hop VPN with a defense against AI-enhanced traffic analysis. I bet you expected a sponsor right there. Don't you think that conflict of interest is corrupt and should be punished? This is what I have to warn you about here. Whenever I mention VPNs, if you see a VPN sponsor or affiliate on any internet content, you should stop trusting that creator. The topic of VPNs is riddled with lies, and I can't ever mention them without pointing that out. If you appreciate my efforts, join my podcast on patreon.com/paid1. It's pretty cool out there. There's only a few major VPNs that currently offer this level of protection. There's Molvad, NimVPN, and Saving Privacy Network. All of these are paid, but if you're using a free VPN, you're using a scam. The only thing better than this is Tor, which is an anonymous overlay network. Tor comes with significantly lower internet speeds, but if you need maximum protection, that is what you want. As for IP addresses, you have a couple of other addresses to address. The first one is Wi-Fi MAC address. There are 2 things to do about this. Go to devices, Wi-Fi, or network settings, and find an option for MAC address randomization. You want to enable the strongest option available for you. The best protection is going to be on graphic OS, which analyzes your phone every single time you reconnect to a Wi-Fi network. I love this. On other phones, you may only be able to randomize your MAC address on per network basis. That's still better than nothing. So another step to do is to disable Bluetooth scanning and Wi-Fi scanning. My knowledge, this is really only possible to do on graphic OS. Anywhere else, even if you disable Bluetooth or turn off your phone completely, low energy scanning will still be happening in the background, exposing your device to surveillance beacons. Turning off the scanning should stop networks and services from tracking your devices as you move out. Now what I'm about to show you is going to sound crazy, but this has actually been real for many years. It is possible to use microphones, sensors, and even speakers on your phone to transmit very light and audible audio signals to track what you do and where. For example, if you go to the movies, apps on your phone may detect what you're watching by tracking audio beacons embedding commercials or content played in its proximity. I know it sounds crazy. This is called ultrasonic cross-device tracking, and it's 100% real. I've talked about this before, and I'll leave all the research papers about it in the description. So how do you stop this? Well, the best way is to revoke microphone permissions to all apps on your phone and only leave those that actually need it for things like calls or recording. I would only choose one-time permission because an app doesn't need your microphone unless you're making a call or recording with it. You can do the same with camera permissions while you're at it. Another way to stop this is to use your phone's microphone permission toggle. You leave the mic off at all times and only turn it on when calling. That deals with the mics. Like gyroscope sensors can also be used the same way. And the worst thing is that iOS can't disable sensors permissions at all. On Android, you can disable sensors only in the developer settings. And on graphic OS, sensors can be easily revoked across the board, and that's what you should do. For now, there's no special permission toggle for the speakers, so we're all kind of screwed there unless you decide them from your phone's motherboard. So the last thing to do, you might find actually the hardest of all. I also talked about it in my Why I Don't Use a SIM video, and you all hate it because y'all are a bunch of. Okay, so cellular tracking is like the more you use your phone with a SIM or an eSIM, your phone's identity and its location will be precisely tracked at all times. times, like is here in this demo. With modern AI surveillance, these things can be easily monitored by anyone with access in real time with a simple prompt. Again, not crazy, all real. Check my sources before you lose your. The way I solve this, and I think this is the best, is I use my phone in airplane mode at all times, and I only turn on my Wi-Fi, older randomization, multi-hop VPN, and disabled scanning on RapidOS. That way, my phone's identity never leaks. Every network I connect to only ever sees a new and out of device, and all my traffic is going through random servers around the world to protect my records from hostile networks and ISPs. If this is not something you can do at all times, I suggest you do this at some of the times. If you're close to a Wi-Fi hotspot, use that to communicate with people over Signal or voice over IP phone numbers and keep your phone in airplane mode. Another solution is to get a secondary phone, even a dumb phone, just for those pesky phone calls and stupid texts some people can't live without still in 2026 for some stupid reason, and keep your personal device as a Wi-Fi only RapidOS badass motto. If you don't do this, then your location will still be tracked. So does it make sense to do any of the steps before if you can't live in the airplane mode? Yes, it does. If you follow all of the steps all the way up to the airplane mode, but you still need phone calls, then you'll leave significant liberties to exposure and attack surface. By limiting location permissions, ads can't use your GPS to track you precisely. By using a VPN, you protect your IP address as well as your browser records and behaviors from hostile networks. If you use a good VPN like Molvad, you also block ads and other trackers, which will make it significantly more difficult for advertisers to harass you. Protecting your IP address will also stop ads from tracking your location. With Netflix minimization, you protect the identity and location of your device from all those Wi-Fi hotspots and scanners. By minimizing your microphone permissions, you're making it more difficult for apps to accidentally listen to your convos or surroundings. If you disable sensors, you prevent ads from knowing a general position of your phone, which is why you should ditch your iPhone and get RapidOS. If the only thing you leave open is the telecom radio, then yes, you're exposed to telecom companies and your phone maker like Google and Apple. They will be able to track you through that. Although not even RapidOS can protect you from telecom surveillance unless you're on the airplane mode. Whatever choice you make, do something. There's a lot of disinfo out there trying to make you think nothing you do matters. This is not true. Reducing your exposure works. Encryption works. Permissions work as long as your phone is updated. I would say unless you need your phone for work calls, it is surprisingly easy to live without all forms of location tracking by following these simple steps that were delivered to you for free and without a sponsor. You should appreciate that fact by joining my podcast on Patreon, where I dive deeper into these topics and provide even more analysis. So join.
For someone like me who never leaves the house, it's just kind of pointless, but okay. You just say, I'm always here, whatever. I don't feel safe going outside anyway. I get it, I get it. Oh, I get it. So, if I were to go more outside for reasons, I'll just pretty much just leave this dumb phone at home and use the actual phone. An actual probably Griffin OS phone for the stuff I need to do. Maybe. Problem is I would have to also replace my smartwatch for something else that feels less and less like an ankle monitor. So yeah, it's not all that easy. Yeah, it costs, and I'm way too broke for that. My budget is pretty much afforded. Just half of it pay bills. The other half is just 1 or 2 Steam games a month. Yeah. Oh well. I just start pirating games again, bro. I have some money back in my bank account, bro. No. If I were terminally broke, then I guess. But yeah. It sucks. I don't know, maybe it just sucks. You cannot live a normal life if you live in a shithole of a fascist authoritarian country. America was not supposed to be like that, but yeah, here we are. Hello. But it is to be part of a marginalized group, bro. That's some skill issue. Make yourself be important enough to not be harassed by the authorities, so that the authorities can play by your side. Yeah, pretty much. You become a sociopath of a salesman and climb your way to a comfortable position. Whoa. Just the publicity. Make a lot of publicity, make noise as long as it's the right type of noise, and save yourself. So you don't have to worry. Yeah, and yet not only that, just play along with everybody else. If you're just too off the curve, you're just gonna be considered a person of interest, to say the least. Oh, sucks. Well, yeah, that's all. Yep.